wanted to do. Can you? Okay. Where are we live? We are live. Okay, so I have the red notification that we've gone live. We have a viewer.
Okay.
And so I need to get rid of the banners, and I need to put private, not the private chat. I need the comments. The comments. Welcome. We are late because of my leg infection.
That's not, no, Al, you're so bad at this. Everybody knows that you blame the weasel.
Mostly the weasel.
There we go.
Maybe I got this infection by being bitten by a weasel. I have 3 eyeballs now. Okay, so people did not know we were doing this for very long. I did put up a post earlier that we'd be on at 6. Hey, Holly. Holly was one of the people who wanted to know what time, and I got back to her and told her it was going to be at 1800 when we decided to be at 1800. And then at 1810, I woke up to my daughter telling me my wife was bringing the groceries into the house and that I needed to wake up and help. And then I saw that Vandy was trying to reach me on the old thing there. So, yeah, we won't have. Oh, you know what? It just came up. In Time is on right now, so we will have 0 viewers. So, Holly, sorry for interrupting In Time. You can go watch that. Whether you're here live or whether you're here later, I think this will be a great video to watch because a lot of people enjoyed Vandy's antics on Bad Science Sunday. And we've done this before. We've had Vandy in to talk about his work in his lab and what he does. The last time we had a big conversation about it was quite a while ago because it was not last Thanksgiving. Although I think we did have a chat, a more casual chat, but you did a whole show with me for Thanksgiving of 2023. Where you explained how it is that atoms become cold when you strike them with a laser. And then what Dr. Tapp has done is, with the help of his, I'm assuming unnamed colleague, because we're not giving out people's names other than yourself. Is that right, Tapp?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
want to not credit the videographer, but
he has a TikTok. He hasn't posted to it apparently in a few years, but
okay.
He has a TikTok. I mean, I'll probably accidentally end up saying his name even if I try not to. So
okay,
I mean, his name is Hunter.
Okay, so there's a gentleman named Hunter, who I understand is also a hunter, which is great. I also am haven't been active in a long time because once we had kids and stuff, leaving for a week to go hang out in the bush with a bunch of friends was not my wife's favorite idea. For me to leave her with a brand new family, and then it's sort of my yearly tradition of going out for like a week-long deer hunt sort of turned into like something I wasn't doing. So I'm gonna change that soon because the kids are teenagers now, and I don't know if I have to go for a full week. I just got to find a closer place to go. Hopefully the sound is good. My video is, as usual, not working. And so I've decided to just leave myself up here like this. That's a day where I don't look quite as bad as I usually do. Hopefully. Vandy is for the serious people tuning in, Vandy is a PhD physicist currently working as a postdoc at Stanford. Yes, they're 2 different places.
What did you say?
Stanford University.
Did you say Stanford?
Huh?
A lot of people put an extra D. Because to me, you said it sounded like you said. Oh, did you say Sanford?
Stanford.
It's Stanford. It doesn't matter.
Stanford. Yes.
To me, you always said it correctly, but
okay. So you never heard me pronounce it.
Yeah,
I got a Canadian accent. It's kind of hard to understand me sometimes. But yeah. So what we got is a PhD physicist doing postdoc work on cold atom. Is it interferometry?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah. So cold atom interferometry, And what we're gonna do is a tour of the lab, not really to show off the lab, but to show how this work is done to set this up. I've watched this
So
video a couple of times.
the reason this video exists, it was taken yesterday, I think yesterday.
Yeah, in the past week, anyway.
And it was actually it has like an instructional video of for like internal lab stuff, because it's showing me turning on all of like the lasers and stuff and doing a bunch of steps that are necessary to actually get the experiment to work. I didn't even realize it's a 10-minute video.
Yeah, it is. I think it's over. I think
like,
it's 10 minutes and 30 seconds, which, based on previous experience, may mean that this video talking about it, if we were watching Roger Spur, it would be a 2.5 hour long video, but because we're not, it'll be 3 hours.
Yeah,
because there will be very little nonsense to laugh at. Yeah. Although I am very good at making jokes about serious shit.
Yeah. So the reason this exists is because it every so often the exact steps that you need to do, like which buttons you press in which order, change, and they're not always super well documented and stuff. And so when I was setting stuff up, because there are a few small parts of this that Hunter wanted refreshing on, because he hadn't done them in a while. And so he was like, oh, you know what we should do? We should just take a video, then like it'll have all of the details. And so that's what we're looking at. And no, it's not the same shirt, just for the record. This is a short sleeve shirt.
You put on a brand new fresh shirt, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
Yeah.
That is really good to know. So
I may be wearing the same pants.
That's totally fine. We're not gonna give you shit about that. I've got an ad for Rio coming up here, which I don't know why is coming up, because okay, here we go. I'm trying to find my I'm trying to find my own channel, actually, which is, really a weird thing to do, because I'm gonna play a video to play us in, because we talked about this being a great idea, whether it is or not. And because we're going to play a video about this, that I have a song that I wrote that is tangential, and you can see the cartoon version of what do you call them? What is buddy? You know what? We're up against like everybody. What did I want to show people? I wanted to show my channel. Okay, here. Can I go to view your channel? Okay, that's what I want. Okay, so here we go. Yes, and this show is coming up. I am so professional. Okay, where is my here it is, videos. You'd think I would have like prepped this ahead of time, but because I slept through everything, it just didn't happen. Here it is. Okay, so I'm gonna do a present. So I'm gonna add is it share a screen? That's not really what I want to do. I want to just present. Well, I guess it is share a screen, right? Okay, here we go. So it's gonna be, this one here. Okay, so I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna mute myself. Tap can mute himself or not. And I'm just gonna share this. And we're gonna I'm just gonna play it, and we're gonna listen to this little song while I think about how we're gonna do this show, because I was so late. What are you gonna do? So please enjoy Real Tight Beams, which has been out for a while, but I'm hoping sharing it here will get more people listening to my. I would say this is poetry about science.
Slipping through vacuums at times, splitting beams that recombine. Every way particles collide even all the ones imbibed, all the masses half-assed, spinning in a spin without charm. Higgsy, can you stick around to weigh bosons? Never miss a photon speed till it stops to do a deed. Never see the packet wait till it's stopped in place. Never trap a cold atom till the phase is right. Never miss a particle beam till neutrinos rain. I guess muons had to leave us. Maybe gluons must deceive us. I know electrons never ground themselves in the large one half, and Higgs fields contain them. Maybe even magnets bend them. Can't you see the mass within them and the speed they had? Never miss a real life thing. Bounces like it's on a spring. You never shoot a beam in day till it bears your way. Never miss a photon speed till it stops to do a deed. Never see the packet wait till it's stopped in place. Never trap a cold atom till the phase is right. So never miss a particle beam till neutrinos rain. I guess muons had to leave us. Maybe gluons must deceive us. I know electrons never ground themselves in the large one half. You never miss a real tight beam till beams recombine. Yeah, till they recombine, real tight beams.
Hello.
All right. Welcome back to hopefully people enjoyed that.
I do like that song.
You do or don't?
I do. I
You
do.
do. Okay. I like that one too. So I'm pulling that out of the way. And then I'm gonna add to the stage Vandy's video here. Is Vandy, you're still well, it doesn't really matter how big you are in either of the videos. I wish in a way it wasn't TikTok style. I found it hard to watch.
Yeah.
My phone was doing it on a browser and would not allow me to just play it in a video player for some reason.
Oh,
it was weird. So I had to and I kept on skipping around. It took me about 3 tries to get it, so I stopped hitting it with my thumb while I was trying to change it so I could see the screen. And hopefully we can. This is big enough for people to see. So if anybody is watching live and they're able to indicate whether or not they see this well or not, that's great. I also want to welcome Tori, who said hello when she came in here. Tori is one of those amazing people at watching and supporting shows all over the place.
Yeah, everywhere.
And, I met her over at DC's. DC has a great channel. She was streaming earlier today. I saw Maya over there saying hello as well. And as long as I'm shilling stuff for people, Maya and Top do a show every Sunday night at, well, it's night for me. It's at usually 21:30 Eastern time. So 9:30 p.m. For those of you that don't use military time. I use military time because I start work usually between 4 and 5 in the morning, and I end work usually more than 12 hours later. So repeating the same hours is confusing as I go around. So I've always used military time to handle that. It's also really easy to do my hours at the end of the day because I just subtract my starting hour from my finishing hour, and that's the number of hours I work. And I know a lot of people think it's weird to use military time, but what I have not ever done is use UTC or Zulu time, which is Universal Time Coordinated. If I was doing that, it would make it easier for people to do that math themselves. Although we have so many people that watch in North America, I think knowing that Tap's on Pacific time, I'm on Eastern time. We have 2 other time zones in the middle. In your country, we have there's more because you have Alaska and stuff, and we have Maritimes. We have the Maritimes, the Atlantic time zone, and the Newfoundland time zone. So there's a lot of places you can watch from. And if you leave the continent, fuck, there's a whole globe out there. Anyway, we will avoid having a flurf tangent. I know that Oakley would lose his fucking shit if he heard us talk about the tangent to a ball. But he doesn't have balls. So just quickly, I know Nathan hate watches me all the time. So I want to say, your balls taste like air because they're not fucking there. All right. And I did not mean to be poetic there, but I watch out, Oakley. There might be another song coming. So Tap, you're gonna start playing a video and show us what's going on. There is a lot of sort of background noise because this is in a lab where there's a lot of computers and a lot of other equipment that produces heat. So please bear with the fan noise.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thought about trying to mute some of the sound, but Tap talks through this and explains things. So just warning for people, they may want to turn your sound down a little bit because it may be jarring at first and then adjust. And I think what we'll do is we'll get you to you're controlling the video, so I've put it up there. So Tap, if you want to do any kind of introduction beyond this, and then also I did type this in there. I'm just going to explain really quickly. And did I get it right in the comment section about how the atoms are cold? Or the atoms are, when we say you're chilling them, like you're making them cold, what you're really doing is you're bringing them very close to 0 Kelvin, right?
Yeah.
And that happens by stopping their movement. It's not the type of. So we did a whole show on this. I'll see if I can find the show, and I'll put a link to it in the description. For those that want to go back and see that conversation. But just, I don't know if you want to do a really brief introduction of how that works. Like, so, and because this is now more along the lines of how that is done, like what the steps are to actually get you there.
Yeah, and it's also very, very technical. This was not intended. When we made this video, it was not actually intended to be. There's a ton of jargon in there. It's mostly kind of like an opportunity to like ask questions or whatever. But yeah, essentially what we're trying to achieve is we point a bunch of lasers at the center of a vacuum chamber, and there's a certain spot where the residual atoms that are still in there, strontium atoms in this case, they will get slowed down. The light pushes them. They're going towards the light and they get pushed back and they lose all of their energy. And that happens at one specific spot where a bunch of lasers intersect, and it looks like this when it's working.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool. It's
it looks awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I don't know how much I don't remember you going into this a lot in your video, but
yeah, we don't see this.
But like how the lasers, like how a laser works and stuff. And because I'm just a curious kind of person, I came after a couple of chats with Dr. Tap, because of course I talked to him about, six cylinder diesel mills that I drive at work. And he talks to me about titanium sapphire lasers he works with. And I get curious about stuff like this. And I don't know how many times Tap's gone to Google about, the inline 6 of North American trucking, which has been doing a lot of work.
Googled stuff you've talked about.
Yeah, no, there's some cool physics involved in both of our jobs. Classical mechanics is far more relevant here, and this is, I think it's fair to say, this does this is not exactly quantum mechanics, but it's right there dealing with it. Because you're not dealing with the individual parts of an atom; you're dealing with whole atoms.
It is, but it's still quantum mechanics, because what we're dealing about is transitioning the atom between different energy states, and that is an intrinsically quantum mechanical sort of like thing. Electrons arrange themselves around the nucleus, and they can only do so in certain ways. Only the particular configurations are solutions to the Schrödinger equation, and you can use light to basically transition between those different states. You can make the electrons go in a different configuration than they normally are. And this is one such transition between a ground state and an excited state. And then when the atoms fall back down to the ground state, they release blue light. So we use blue lasers to make them absorb that light. And when they absorb it, they receive some of the momentum, because photons, light has momentum. It doesn't have mass, but it does have momentum.
That's right.
And so the atoms in the middle here are moving much, much, much more slowly, because any direction they move, they're getting punched in the face by photons that are slowing them down each time.
Yeah, and so that's how they're sort of is I know you've used the word trap. It's like you are trapping the atom in a very, very low motion state.
Yes.
So matter is being struck by what I think in physics we talk about it as being like pure energy, and that's why we say photons don't have a mass unless you had a single photon stopped. And I actually said in my song, about the mass, you can't measure its mass until it stops to do a deed. I think I say something along those lines, because if you could stop a photon, it would then have mass, but when it's moving, it has a mass of 0 or something to that effect.
Yeah,
there's some calculated that.
There are some weird experiments where you can slow down photons really, really darn slow, but those are very contrived situations that are not.
Yeah, like, this is and this is where the theoretical meets experimental. And Dr. Tapp is an experimental physicist. So the apparatus in this photo is sort of I don't want to speak for you, but from what we've talked about before, this is kind of the end goal of everything you're going to walk through. Because at the beginning of the video, we started at a computer screen and everything. So this is where the action happens.
Yeah,
you see everything else in this lab that makes this action happen. There's so many moving parts to this.
Yeah, and you'll see some of them. This is a magneto-optical trap, because you also need magnetic fields. These behind this kind of ugly black thing that's going all around, and I know the lighting is terrible, but there are wound copper coils that we put a bunch of current through, and that creates a magnetic field with a certain pattern. And right in the middle, the field actually goes to 0, and that causes imbalance between how hard the different lasers push. So it doesn't just slow them down, it also, once they're slowed down, it keeps them there, so it traps them. And so this is a blue magneto-optical trap. We call that a MOT.
A MOT.
M-O-T, MOT.
And does MOT stand for something? Because magneto-optical. So say it again. Sorry, Tap, I talked over you.
Magneto-optical trap, MOT.
Okay. Holly has a request. Could you make your cursor more noticeable? Can you change the color of it? Because I can see the little white blur, but and it turns green.
This one, okay. On this one, is that because the other one, I'm showing an image. This one
on the video, so it shows up as a green. It's pretty well contrasted with the background. There are some green laser shots. I don't know if the cursor will react to that. Like, I don't know if your computer's cursor will react to the background.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so
I could find a setting and make it even bigger.
Just consider that. There is this setting or is not for the cursor.
There is somewhere, but I don't remember if that was something that I had to sort of do custom
Okay.
or if it's just a
And is it
vanilla
operating
Windows thing.
system
So
level or software level? Like,
yeah,
yeah. So
um,
it's probably not easy to do. To me, it looks quite reasonably sized right now. So,
yeah,
but yeah, Holly, if you're still watching and you're able to just comment, because it looks like we lost a lot of viewers. I think a lot of people are doing shows right now.
it's a
I do
very
want to.
busy time.
It's a ridiculously busy time, but Tap and I are both available.
Yeah.
Theoretically, I would have been available for 6 o'clock if I hadn't gone to bed to rest my leg up. And I don't want to spend 9 years complaining about it, but I have a terrible infection in my left leg. And I'm now on antibiotics, and I did not sleep last night at all until 3 a.m. So, oh, you're on your phone also, Holly. Okay, so Holly, yeah, that will
Oh,
probably not improve this.
yeah, that's gonna
And Holly,
be.
I don't know if you ever watch on a computer, but if there's something you really want to see detail wise and you're able to watch on a computer, it is a little bit easier to see. I'm on a computer, which is not my usual place, and I also want to, because I'm a person that does a lot of listening. That's why I want to sort of read out things that people are saying. Because I treat YouTube videos during my workday as sort of a podcast. I don't watch the videos, but I listen to the people talking. And if I get to a stop place, I sometimes get to look. There's a lot of good visual in here, though. So this is, if you are the type of person that likes to listen, like I do, you're gonna love this. And Tap, you froze up, I think. No,
I
you
froze.
just
No,
no,
I'm
no. I
just
think you
standing
just got
still,
trapped
staring
by
at
one
a
of the
thing.
lasers, and we're moving very slowly.
Yeah.
It looked like It looked like there was a. It looked like there was a glitch on my end, and then you suddenly stopped moving. But I think you were just really slow.
What? How's this?
I mean, I don't see a difference, but I can definitely see the brightness of the green is a little better.
It's
So I
also
think
it is significantly larger now. So
okay. All right. Well, also I'm an old man and my eyes don't work.
oh wait, it doesn't look significantly larger
It
on the
doesn't to
screen.
me,
That's
but like
weird. No, you're
the
right.
green
That is
seems
weird.
the
I
green
don't know why that
intensity
would be.
is brighter. So it's not doing what you expected it to.
Yeah, because like for me, it's way brighter. But
Okay.
I guess that it automatically does some stuff on the StreamYard end. So
Yeah, probably. And StreamYard is a terrible program to use, but I know how to use it, and I think I'm gonna look at some other ways of doing it. Well, Sumami, what is going on in here? Well, we've trapped a weasel, and also, you did talk about induced magnetic fields there, Dr. Tap. So I think if you're watching live, please put some magnets in the chat with some derogatory statements about Tap's ability to understand magnetic fields.
I don't know what they are.
You know what they are?
I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they are. Okay. I mean, magnetism is really fucking cool and far more complicated than I think, because we use magnets day to day for different things. So I think magnets are not well understood. I don't think we have Dream Suitor Tap. Does that? I think Sumami is asking you to woo her.
Oh yeah, no. Sumami told me that that she had a dream where myself and Kyle Hill is a big YouTuber.
Okay, because the first Kyle that came to mind was Kyle Adams, and Kyle Adams is the insane flurf. He's a Mormon flurfer.
Kyle Hill is a guy with really long, beautiful hair who does science communication videos. It's a great channel. But him and I were competing for her hand in marriage. Hand in marriage.
I'm imagining a great show where there's like kind of like a reverse Rapunzel, and there's like two towers with two long-haired gentlemen. And Sumami is on a magnificent white steed being wooed from all sides.
Yeah.
And she has to fight two evil witches in two evil towers to save two manzels in distress. But one of them's way cooler than the other.
Yeah. And Kyle's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. But you can get Adams to damn near 0K. So let's, we're gonna go on this video, but not before I make a joke about how close to 0K my sub count is, and we'll move on from there. Anyway,
Nice,
I'll have to
perfect.
check out this Kyle Hill because I'm not familiar with them. I've probably seen them and didn't realize that was their name.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of people named Kyle
yeah.
out there, including Cosmic Kyle, who's a friend of our show and has come by to say hello many times. And I tried to go watch their stuff, and I think they do astronomy stuff. And I think there's another Cosmic Kyle that does something that's not that. So anyway, I'm having trouble finding the videos. So I know Cosmic Kyle will definitely come and watch this because they will have a tremendous interest in cold atom interferometry. So Tap, since we've been going for 30 minutes of intro time, listening to a song, talking about tsunami, does the video have flashing lights?
No.
There might be some sort of undulation of the light, but the atoms are like a solid thing.
Well,
There's
also, you're not going to see the atoms.
No,
like,
that's right.
This is not like this is an instruction video for how to turn on a bunch of stuff in the experiment.
Yeah, but Holly, if you're subject to seizures and stuff like that, I don't remember any part of the video where like there's intense bright flashing light. So I think do watch with caution, but the if you remember that blue light there's other places where you see like a solid light like that, but there's not like a lot of blinking.
No, the most you'll get is that like the phone moves around sometimes, so like it can be a little bit unsteady because he's moving it all around to like look at the things that I'm pointing at and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is more sort of like a behind the scenes kind of peek at stuff. So shall we?
Yeah, no, you go ahead, take it away. I'm actually just while it was on my mind, I'm just looking up the one that we did in Thanksgiving. I'm just trying to find it and I'm not seeing it here, so I gotta figure out where the fuck it went. Anyway, you start it up.
Okay.
Start it up there.
Beautiful. Okay, so we've turned on the Blue Master, the first one, then the 707. We're not turning on power lasers 1 and 2 because those are for frame 1. So what this is a piece of software that has different columns for all of the different lasers. Well, not all of them. Some of the different lasers in the lab. And so like I've already used like a bunch of jargon here. I've talked about the Blue Master, the 707, the 679, other lasers, power lasers, and basically you need the blue lasers are like the main thing that's like hitting the atoms, but there are also other lasers that you need because sometimes when the atom goes in its excited state, it falls back down to a different ground state that's not the right one. So you have to like have all of these different lasers and they all have to be tuned to exactly the right frequency. And so each column of this piece of software is the thing that's doing that. And I'm kind of going through and pointing out like which ones you have to have on for what we're trying to do here. The 679 laser is on, and you have to turn this on before you then turn on the TA. And so this right here is an example of like one of those details in the lab that potentially, if you don't get it right, could potentially cost a lot of money. This box with the button that I'm pointing at right here, this is an amplifier for one of the lasers that's particularly weak. There's a laser that we use at 679 nanometers, which is a red laser, and that's weak. So we have to amplify it by a lot, and we basically point the laser into another little chip thing, and then that amplifies it. But if you turn that amplifier on, and I call it a TA because that's a tapered amplifier. If you turn that thing on without any light going into it, it can damage it. And everything in the lab is expensive except for like the rulers. And so you have to turn on the thing on the computer before you press this button. Then you also have to turn on the Galvatron. And then this is like the one part where we go to a different part of the lab. Little janky box over there. And this is the Galvatron in its little janky box. And it just has the nice on-off thing. So
Cap, can I interrupt for just two seconds here? This is a part where and I'm of course no expert in this field. But I hear words and then I start wondering what is the meaning of something. I know you get into this a bit, but two things. I don't know how janky that box is. It looks like a standard sort of steel, like a painted steel in like enclosure for electronic equipment.
Yeah, it's just not finished. A lot of the stuff in the lab is finished.
Yeah. Like so, and it doesn't need to be, right? Like it doesn't. It's not it's not like an iPhone where it has to look cool as well as have cool electronics in it.
Yeah,
you could take a lot of things off of a device and still have it functional. It just needs to sort of be impact resistant a little bit in case it gets jostled. But galvatron makes me think about the word like galvanizing, which usually means to coat something in a protective thing. And so I wondered, can you just explain what the galvatron does? Like what is being galved in this?
The galvatron is essentially it's a cathode and an anode inside with a bunch of like strontium. So it's a glass tube, and then you've got a cathode and an anode that you charge up to pretty high voltage. I can't remember off the top of my head what the voltage is. It's enough that like it's I think a few hundred volts, but not crazy. It's not like many thousands.
Yeah, it's not like a world destroying unit.
You basically get like an electric discharge between the cathode and the anode. And this one is the cathode and the anode are actually both hollow. So then we shine lasers through them, and these things, when you charge them up, it basically emits strontium atoms as a vapor into that like little tube there. And over time, you'll have the atoms go from, I never remember which way the order goes, the anode. They go from the anode to the cathode. And so you're sort of plating it. So it's a like a galvanic process. I don't remember exactly the technical definition of galvanic, but it's like pertaining to electrical like potentials and stuff, and how well atoms will bind to, or different atoms will bind in the presence of like free electrons or ions or things like that. Because strontium is normally a metal. It's just a metal. So you need to kind of heat up a thing and then zap it with the electricity to get enough of them in this little tube that when you shine a laser through it, there's a lot of strontium there, and that laser will interact with the strontium depending on its frequency. And so we're gonna see a little bit later that on an oscilloscope there are a bunch of traces that go up and down, and that is a highly processed, essentially like shadow when it's on resonance. Like when you're on resonance, then it absorbs all the light, and when it's off resonance, then it doesn't. And then you process it and mix it and do a bunch of electronics black magic, and you get a thing that goes up and then down through below zero, and then you have this thing that crosses it will show up later. But essentially what this is the thing that makes the strontium vapor, so that you have strontium atoms to poke out with lasers to keep them on resonance.
Mm-hmm.
The galvatron is not the glowing blue thing.
No, it's just getting the atoms prepared.
It's not even on the same table.
The trap, like, right? It's not the trap. It's you don't say this explicitly, but like when you're hitting the strontium, like you don't have a bag of gas that's strontium gas. You're getting individual strontium atoms excited and knocked loose from a solid directly from this process.
Yeah.
It's not like a liquefaction. It's not like heating. It's like you're not boiling off liquid strontium to get this like vapor, like the way we might think
Correct.
about a water vapor, right? So this is not something
correct.
you can do in your kitchen at home with a brick of strontium.
You could do fundamentally, like if you heat it up, like heating up anything will send off a vapor. You'll have a vapor, but it's the boiling point of strontium is like thousands of degrees. But if you heat it up to 400 degrees, then you'll have a vapor, which is what we want. We actually don't want like a thick gas of it.
No,
that's way too much. We need a very dilute amount.
And the anode cathode situation allows you to control its flow from one side.
Well, the anode cathode situation here is basically to get a bunch of strontium in a very specific spot that we can then probe it by sending lasers from other sides.
Yeah.
And everything in this video is about figuring out how to get the lasers to be the right frequency. We're locking these lasers to
because you could dial in the wavelength. You could dial in the wavelength by asking for it, but the frequency is
it's the same thing. The frequency and wavelength are the same thing, but we need to have it correct to like a part in a lot.
It's to a very precise decimal place, right?
Yeah. Like the laser produces light that comes out at maybe 461.2 to 461.7 nanometers, and then we need it to be at like 461.50389. It like
so that's what you're dialing. You're dialing that in. That's like when you talk about tuning it to be perfect. That's what you're working on. And because if you're not that precise, then the strontium will not do this super cool state.
It won't. The strontium won't even notice that there's light there. If the light is a fraction, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent off in frequency and wavelength, so same thing, just conversion factor. Then the strontium atoms like won't even know that there's light there because it's just not resonant with it.
And we talked about that resonance.
The electrons
super
correctly.
Important in our other video. And I did find. I think I can. So this is. I'm posting. Obviously we're live now, but if you click on that video, that's the one where we have the conversation. Without any of the apparatus here, just to explain how you get that super cooled effect. And that maybe calling it a super cooled effect is probably a little cavalier, but that's what's happening. You're stopping the motion of these atoms by being this precise, right?
Yeah. That's you need to be this precise to be able to stop the motion. And so these are the steps that we take. So like this is a device that I have to turn on, and there's a little box on the table. I don't actually point that out I might be able to because let's see if I can point to it on the table.
Okay. Did you see
I don't know if it's visible.
Hello to Andrew Christofferson as well. Welcome, Andrew. Andrew is great community member and an artist, and has been doing great work for a lot of people in the community, including me. Stay tuned for that. Holly's asking, what does it mean for strontium to notice the light, which I think you've sort of been explaining, but I want to make sure it's understood. That's this resonance thing you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So it means to be able to absorb a photon. Light is a bunch of individual photons. And when light passes a strontium atom, if it's exactly the right frequency and wavelength, then that photon will just be absorbed by the strontium atom, and the photon disappears, and its energy and momentum are absorbed by the strontium atom. And then typically a few nanoseconds later, it will eject that photon in some random direction. But that only happens, the first part, absorbing. You can't eject a photon if you don't have any photons to eject. It can only absorb a photon if that photon is exactly the right frequency. That is, and so if it's not, they won't notice because, and so they're not conscious, of course, but yeah, it's if it, like our eyes can only see certain colors of light. We can't see infrared light. So if you shined a bunch of that at us, we won't notice because it doesn't physically do anything to our retina. It doesn't cause any physical changes that are noticeable.
Yeah, so and when you go to the dentist, they actually blast X-ray photons at you, and you hear you sometimes hear a buzz, which I think is actually just a door being opened and closed to let them out of a very heavy chamber. At least that's been my experience. And because the X-rays are being emitted from an X-ray emitting material, and so you don't notice that at all. We're constantly bombarded with photons that we don't see. And we don't even see, we don't see light cross a room, per se. We see it bounce off of objects. And when it bounces off an object, we recognize and can resolve imagery because our brains and our ocular nerves and the whole thing is very, very well set up for what we call the visible spectrum. But the spectrum of photons that are available in our known universe is quite large and varied.
Yes.
And you're hitting this very, so in a laser, just for people that, because my son actually came down to listen because he's curious. So he may not understand exactly what a laser is, but a laser is in phase light.
I know what a laser is.
But in terms of what that means scientifically, I don't think this video is the one where you go into, how a titanium sapphire laser works. We should do one. And I think people would find that super, super interesting. But it making this light come out in phase gives it not just that it's all in phase together, but the particular strength and the ability to actually tune it and dial it up. That's something that titanium sapphire laser brought to the market when it was invented that allowed this type of work to be done. And that's one of the neat things about it I learned is that its tunability is super important for this type of
experience. And only one of the lasers in this is a titanium sapphire laser. The rest of them are little diode lasers. It's similar technology to what's in a Blu-ray player. Very similar. It's literally blue.
These other lasers are sort of massive, convoluted machines with some very stuff.
But these diode lasers, they can only put out light over a small range, half a nanometer. Of 461.2, maybe 461.7 nanometers is the wavelength range. That's if you change it over that entire range, you can tune it within that range somewhat. And as if you just turn the laser on and you don't do anything to stabilize its frequency, then it's just kind of the frequency at any given moment is kind of going to be whatever it is. The laser's living its life, it's doing its thing, it's sending out light, and so that frequency will drift around, and we need to fix it at a specific value. So we need to lock it there. And then the 689, if you're going to be doing red mott stuff. And so right there, I referred to another laser, the 689 laser, and that's for red mott stuff. The glowing blue dot that I showed earlier, this thing, this is very visible and bright because it's very easy to make the atoms absorb this particular color of light. If it's on resonance, they will absorb a lot of atoms and they will spit them out just as fast. They absorb an atom and then photons. They absorb photons. Atoms are not being absorbed by anything. The atoms absorb a lot of blue photons and they're spitting them out just as fast. It's so fast that you look at it and it's a glowing bright blue thing. This is if you're in the lab and you're looking at it, it's a bright blue glowing dot in the middle of the chamber. You don't need a special camera to see that. And that's the blue magneto optical trap. There's also we also use another transition at 689 nanometers instead of 461 nanometers. And it's a similar process, but that transition to go to basically to get the electrons to shake in a slightly different way so that they're not going to the same excited state that they are when you hit it with blue light, that transition is a lot narrower. Even when you're on resonance, a narrow transition will not absorb as many photons, and it won't spit them out as rapidly. It's a lot harder to make those electrons do exactly the special dance that you need to put them in this excited state. So that was so I'm referring to a laser that you don't actually there we go. Need to you don't need this last column. You don't need to do anything with that to get that blue dot to work, but you do need it to get down to the temperatures that we need. So that's what I'm pointing out. And all of these various settings are like, all of them can, matter and stuff, but I'm not going to go into them partially because you can't really see it. So, yeah.
So, yeah, Tap, I don't want to interrupt the flow too much, but Andrew asked an interesting question. And I know about using this for like gravimetry experiments and stuff like that. I know you do get measurements of that. The work you're doing is at like at an experimental level, but you're not doing an experiment for industry to find out something specific. You're doing experiments on the experiment, almost like to find out what can be found out, I think, but maybe you could go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so ultimately the aim of our lab is to exploit quantum mechanics and exploit how precisely you can manipulate atoms to build a very, very precise sensor for other phenomenon. We want to be able to build something that is able to measure the distance between two different groups of atoms so precisely that if a gravitational wave passes and shrinks or expands that distance a little bit, that we'll be able to notice because we have this extremely precise detector that and that relies on taking these atoms and putting them into a superposition and then having them come back and interfere with themselves and all that. You can also use this to measure how strong gravity is at a particular location. And so it's one of the two like state-of-the-art ways of doing gravitational acceleration measurement. If you take these experiments and you move them a few feet to the side, then you'll notice that gravity is different there to some fraction, because maybe there's a brick underneath that side, and so it's like a little bit stronger. You can make maps of like how strong gravity is in a room, and if you have a big chunk of lead at a specific spot, you're going to notice that the gravity over that is stronger. Obviously, this is not something that we notice on any like kind of normal scale. But
yeah, no, this is like, because we can't, when you think of scientific instruments, you often think of like something with a little needle on it, and that, when you get it physically attached to something, you can measure a pressure or a speed or something like that, right? But this, like, you're producing the base scientific knowledge that would allow instruments to be made that are non-traditional instruments in that regard, but they can work on these. When you work on things at the quantum level, you're able to develop a certain precision that far exceeds anything like what we'd have in sort of like what people think of in the, like, sort of analog gauge readings of something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're taking this to like an extreme level, but that having known quantities and spacing between things, and then seeing the change because of that gravitational wave passing through, for instance, is something that, much like our interaction with X-rays, it could be going on, but there's like, without having this instrumentation, and experimentation set up and knowing what the parameters are, how would you know that a change is happening? And until you build this, even though it's happening, it's like these things happen all around us all the time, but detecting them requires building something of this level of precision, which requires all these other levels of precision. And the other thing that I wanted to point out that I noticed, that I don't know if people caught this, but you said like it takes a certain amount of time to produce this. Like, so this isn't something you'd necessarily happen upon by accident. You'd have to know other theoretical bits of the physics that are learned at another level to get to the point where you come up with this idea that you could bombard strontium enough in a certain way. Like somebody came up with that to get those strontium vapor available to do this experiment with. And when you think of all the little bits and pieces that are involved here, particularly for those who are science deniers and who give very little respect to the scientific industry, at an academic and at a commercial level, the work that's done is absolutely amazing. And that's one of the reasons I love having someone like yourself come on to talk about this stuff, even though we just have friendly chats all the time. This particular part of what you do is super interesting to me, because I'm very interested in photons in general, and I get to hear presentations like this on medical stuff that I find interesting because I have medical problems, but I'm not as interested in them as I am in physics. So I love this. I hope other people are loving it too. And I don't really want to interrupt the flow all the time, but I have so many questions. And I'm sure everyone does. And I also pointed out that PhD Tony, who I know quite a bit from watching him interact with some of the Florf community. He does some great work with this, and Taps talked to him casually anyway. I don't know if you've been on
we haven't yet like properly had a conversation, because he does like exactly the same stuff,
the same type of experiment, but he works specifically on the gravimetry measurements.
Exactly. He's got like I think he has like has like a portable version of this.
And he does work like this to find out. And I think he's a seismologist is the type of physics that he's trained in and works in, but he uses this type of experimentation to do that. So I don't know where his role is in this. I don't know what his title is in that. But he does this and gets real results for the real world with this, whereas what you're developing that technology to be even more useful for many more things. But watching what really small does in the presence of changes in our world, in our universe, gives us clues about things that are hard to understand. And some people will say, well, I can't see the electrons in that atom changing their location relative to the nucleus or whatever, and so it doesn't exist. Well, but like, if there's a hurricane and the wind blows it down, like, does the wind exist? Like, you can't see air molecules either. But when they move, they hurt.
Explain to me how I get the glowing blue dot. Explain precisely. Explain why when I perform these steps and do this, it works, and when I don't, it doesn't. I can explain why. Okay, maybe not to any given person's satisfaction. It took me many years to learn all of the things, and I don't know every detail of how every single little bit. I don't know exactly how the computer screen works. I know on some high kind of level, but like if I had to build an LCD screen, I'd be like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to do a lot of research.
I have a friend in the real world. Like, it's someone I met online, but I have a friend in the real world who their job was, when I met them, they were an engineer working on I think it was inkjet printer heads, and getting more and more precise printing out of inkjet printing, because it was an industry that was becoming very, very popular. And I'm thinking back to probably late aughts of the millennium. they were doing that type of work, and now they work somewhere else in, like, I think the defense industry. But their engineering and physics background is hugely helpful to industry, and so they've had work at a few different really cool companies. And one of the things that's cool about stuff like that is somebody had to start doing something and playing around with something that eventually becomes something like, who doesn't have a printer that costs like $150 sitting on a shelf somewhere? You know, like that, the fact that exists came from work they did early in their career. And other people are probably still doing it now, because if something is useful and cool, it's useful and cool. And people will pay money for it. So Tap, please take us on a further tour of the lab and what goes on here. Have we made it a whole minute into the video?
No, we've made it 45 seconds.
Okay, all right, let's go.
You also turn on. And then the TISAF, you need to turn on the pump.
So this is the titanium. This is, okay, this panel on the screen, this is actually the laser that you shine into the titanium sapphire laser. Because the titanium sapphire laser, the power source for it is another laser. Okay, and the power source for that laser is not another laser. It's not lasers all the way down. But you need to turn on this thing and then shine that into another laser, and then we have to frequency lock that laser. This laser, we don't have to frequency lock it. We just have to turn it on and make sure it's a powerful green light.
So you go to the Equinox thing,
and that's the name of it. They call it
the
Equinox.
shutter has to be open, and then you can select one of these powers, and it doesn't automatically do this because it's dumb. And so if you do that, then it'll do that. It'll make a little noise,
so it was probably impossible to hear, but when I clicked a button and I turned this laser on to 15.5 watts, which is that's a lot of laser power. If that goes into your eye, it won't just blind you, it will like probably cause your eye to start like bubbling. It'll be really bad. Yeah. If you have 1,000 times less power, that's pretty dangerous. If you have 100 times less power, then it would blind you instantly, but it wouldn't like set your face on fire. This could like not actually set your face on fire, but it would burn your like eyebrows and stuff.
This thing will fluctuate, showing that it's setting the wave plate, and so that's warming up. And
I have to turn this laser on earlier because it has to like kind of ramp up to that power, and there's some motors and stuff that make some noise and words. Basically, there's a thing that's turning that changes some polarization and lets more light through, and so that the light can go into the titanium sapphire laser. Because this panel, it's a different panel, I promise, is the panel for the titanium sapphire laser. And it's the like crazy tunable laser that you can tune that between, technically it can go, this particular one maybe not, but it can go all the way down to 670 maybe nanometers, or they can, this one definitely can't, go all the way up to 1100 nanometers. So that is several hundred, which is deep into the, not deep, but it's in the infrared. It's totally invisible. Whereas on the lower end, it's red light. And that is a very wide range. And it's very, special technology, and it's also finicky as hell. The laser, this laser here that's being controlled by this panel, and the one on the previous panel, together, that system costs $250,000. And we have a few of them, and they don't all work because this company has got some issues, but yeah.
Now that's gonna warm up and take a little bit. So now to actually lock the lasers that we turned on over here, the locks for those are all right here.
So now I'm pointing at, I said the locks for these lasers are all right here. What I mean is that we have PID controllers. So a PID controller, basically you have a signal that you're trying to keep at a particular value. Like maybe you have some motor that is spinning and you need it to spin at a particular rate. And then you would have a device that you would use to measure how fast it's spinning, compare it to how fast it should be spinning, look at the error there, and correct from it. And if you're really far away, then maybe you got to spin the motor up a little bit faster. And if it's going too fast, you got to slow it down. And so the PID controller is a proportional, integral, and differential gain. It measures how far away it is from the correct setting. It measures how long, that's the proportional part. It measures how long it's been far away. That's the integral part. And it measures how fast it's moving towards or away from the correct value. And so that's a general term. Like your car probably has a bunch of these in them. They're ubiquitous, but these it's this box right here that has these 4 little like pink red displays. They're like little digital displays, and they're also expensive. Those are each individual little modules that you can actually pull out of that box. And each of those modules costs like $2,800, and then the whole box also costs. It's a very expensive thing, okay? And I don't get all that money. They don't pay me $250,000 a year. But so
maybe they should. Maybe
I would absolutely endorse that. I would absolutely
more input always equals more output, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so, but this is a lot of electronics. Like we have some detectors that are looking at how bright the light is that they're seeing, and then processing that and turning it into an electronic signal and putting that into these boxes. And then those boxes are like, okay, but that thing, actually, I'm trying to keep that electronic signal that I'm getting. I'm trying to keep that electronic signal to be 0. Okay. But it's not quite 0. It just went a little bit away. Now it's a little bit positive. So I'm going to turn down how much current I'm sending through the laser diode. Okay, like literally how much electricity is going through the laser diode. That you dial that down, and now that changes how much like light, the frequency of the light that's coming out, and then that light is going through this strontium tube that I described earlier, and then it's getting absorbed by a photodetector. And now, because this box was like, no, you're at the wrong frequency. You need to be at a lower frequency. I'm going to put another signal out to the box that's powering the laser, telling you to decrease the current, and that decreases the frequency and also the power, but mostly the frequency. We care about the frequency here.
That's your key thing. And Tap, I think it's good to point out. Andrew said he'd geek out in that room, and I think we all would to a point. And of course, this is your milieu, so you understand exactly what's going on here. But the key point, I think, is that without all these, without the digitization of the sensory data on what's going on, you would not be able to make the fine-tuning adjustments that need to be made to do your experimentation, right? Like this has to, you wouldn't be able to just eyeball this shit.
No, you cannot. You can't eyeball it, but you're gonna see me doing some stuff where I'm looking at a thing and I'm correcting it. But what I'm doing is I'm getting it close enough so then I can push a button and the automatic electronics will then lock it right where I need it.
But you know where you're aiming for.
Yeah,
but the super fine tuning is where these sensors
you need
to give you the feedback.
Because it needs to happen fast.
And
Like
prior experimentation has given you the background info you need to figure this out, right?
yeah, and there's a lot of electronics engineering going here.
Yeah. Like
It's
the number of scientists involved, like you've listed off a bunch of people you work with, but let's say there's like 40 people in your area working on this in that one university. It's probably 10 or 100 times more people were involved in making the shit that happened to get you to that point.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, we didn't build these boxes. We bought these from a company. This box and all of its subparts, and also these three over here, are all from Stanford Research Systems, which is a private company. It's like affiliated, I'm sure, with Stanford.
Yeah, but it's not like the university just like whip those up in like,
yeah,
they go over to like Jenny's lab and say, hey Jenny, grab me a couple of these.
Yeah, I have somewhere. I have a shirt. This is one of my favorite shirts. It's my Think Science shirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it came in a box when we bought something from Stanford Research Systems.
Cool.
And it's really good.
Cool. I just want to go to make
they're an awesome company.
Yeah.
They like
well, you get
SRS is a great company because they send you the thing and they send you a circuit diagram for it. It doesn't give all the detail because then any company could just copy it.
It's not proprietary level, but enough that you can troubleshoot something.
Like it's not giving you like the actual trace of exactly on the circuit board exactly how thick the thing is, but it's showing you there's a resistor and then it's followed by a capacitor. It gives you a lot. You
have something you can work with, right? Like it's like, and I think that's a lot of people don't understand the importance of that. But if you're trying to troubleshoot or work on something, knowing what it is that you have and where to start is super helpful, because a lot of things in electronics just look the same. Like identifying one piece over another. There could be little numbers on, but if it's soldered on a board, and a lot of things are so small now. They're
not labeled.
You can read the color bands on and shit, right? Like
surface mount soldered stuff is often not labeled. It's just too small. Mean, you place it with tweezers.
No, exactly. And a lot of times you actually need like some sort of optical device to like some sort of like magnifying glass, or like some work's done under an actual microscope. But like this is not stuff that you can like, I think of the electronic stuff I did like in high school, man. Like we would solder a couple of things together. Like that stuff was huge in comparison. Like we would have a board that was like, the size of like a piece of paper, and you'd be like putting these things on and putting little wires on them or whatever. Like nowadays, like that amount of electronics fits in something smaller than your fingernail.
This was my grandfather.
He's pulling out the Van de Graaff soldering iron.
Yeah, this is his soldering iron. It's huge. It's like as big as my finger, and it's got a wooden handle
to make the original Van de Graaff generator, right? Do we say that?
I don't know if it was this exact.
We don't know if that's true.
But I would bet money that he used it to make some Van de Graaff generators.
Yeah, most likely, yeah. He probably had to sell 3 or 4 Van de Graaff generators to the flat Earth industry first, so that they could prove that gravity's not a thing.
Yeah, I guess
make enough money to buy that soldering iron, and then he made ones for real scientists.
Yeah,
that's a dig at you, Willis. Just in case you didn't know.
Yep.
And what a tool that guy is. Okay, don't let me get on that tangent.
I'm not. So now I'm opening the door to the table. And so we have panels on this thing to basically keep the environment out, and it helps stabilize everything. There are some parts of this that are very sensitive to the environment, and like if I leave these open for too long, then actually my experiment will noticeably deteriorate in quality, and I can, like, there's a setting that I can do to like compensate for it, but then it's moving all over because the temperature in the lab changes by a couple of degrees or something, and the air conditioning, like where I'm standing in that lab, there's actually an air conditioning vent like right above me. That like blows down, and then it can go into the table. So we have these panels that we close around it, and inside it's a big steel table. It's a thick steel table, so it's like this thick, and it's honeycombed stainless steel. The honeycombing is, I guess, a way of making it vibration resistant, and it has holes, screw holes every 1 inch. And it is 1 inch. It's not 25 millimeters. Everywhere else in the world is 25 millimeters. This is America. It's 25.4 millimeters. We also use different threading. We use quarter 20. Everybody else uses M6. I digress. But
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You're working in an imperial lab.
Yeah. I mean, because we won the bloody war.
Which one?
I mean, none recently.
Okay.
But
all right. Well, let's move on with this thing here, because we don't want to get into politics.
461. So you take the PDA.
So what I was just describing, these 4 boxes here, the 2 in the middle both control the blue laser, and there's a one of them is controlling a thing called the piezo, and that is literally, so the piezo effect is certain crystals, if you apply electricity to them, they expand or contract, and so you can use that to basically make a variable length mount, and then you can, if you have 2 mirrors, for example, and one of them is on a piezo, then you can control the distance between the mirrors. And only an integer number of wavelengths can exist between the 2 mirrors. So if you push the mirrors a little bit more together, then that means that the light that is resonant with that cavity has changed in frequency. So in the laser, there's a microscopic, basically there are 2 little microscopic mirrors. I'm simplifying this. It doesn't work exactly that way. It actually does work exactly that way in the Titanium Sapphire, though, although there's 4 mirrors. And only the light that is exactly an integer number of wavelengths can bounce between those. And so if you change it, that changes the frequency of the laser, because now a different frequency is building up and being amplified. It's awesome. Very similar to if you were to sliding a trombone thing, right? Because then your lips are still putting out, similar noise, but different reverberations are being amplified based on the geometry of the thing. And in that case, you just use your hand to change how long the tube is. Here, there's a microscopic little crystal that you put electricity on, and that makes it expand and contract. And that's one of the things that we use to control the frequency. So I'm explaining how to lock these lasers. So I'm taking a cable that if you put signals into this cable, then it makes the laser change its frequency. And I'm plugging that into a function generator that is going to make it linearly ramp its frequency and then go back to 0. It's a sawtooth pattern or a triangle wave. It's one of those.
That sounds
awesome.
One.
Yeah.
You plug it into this function generator so that it's doing a sweep of the piezo.
So that means that now one of those little mirrors is going like wee woo wee woo wee woo, and the light that's coming out is changing according to where that mirror is.
So, Tab, can I just for clarification, is it when you say you're locking it, are you locking it to that frequency? Like, so the movement is at that frequency, or are you locking it at a particular length?
We're locking it at a particular length.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
For the blue laser, you're looking at the.
Okay, so now you can see a little bit more of the stuff sort of on the table. The thing that I was just pointing at is this glowing screen in the middle. By the way, because they are the most visually obvious thing in this shot, these red and blue tubes, those are water cooling tubes. The blue ones are cold water coming in, and then the red ones are after they go through the thing that they're cooling down. It's not important to what is being shown on the video, but since they're the most obvious thing,
right, front and center. And then, like, all of this equipment needs, like, all this type of stuff would need constant cooling. Well, when under any kind of a load, or
no, most of these things don't.
Okay.
So actually, it's if I move my mouse away, it actually shows the stuff on the table. You can see on the bottom left there, you can see some holes in the steel board that are at regular intervals. Those are the holes in the breadboard, and you screw things into it and clamp them down, like right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll move my cursor in a moment. There is a fork that is being used to hold down some other optic so that it doesn't move. And you can see some red light in the back here. You can see some of this blue light here. That is light from the laser. There is a box right here. Okay? There's a box right here with several pieces with several labels from a label maker on it. And
is it a Brother P-Touch?
I did
the label maker. That was.
Oh, I don't know.
That was a joke. I don't need you to know which label maker you used.
Yeah, I don't. But this is the box with the Galvatron. It's got the high voltage discharge lamp. I think it's maybe vaguely similar to like how neon lights work, but that might be totally incorrect. I don't.
Well, we'll get into neon lights another time.
But there are several different. There are two red lasers, and a blue laser, like going in from two different directions through this tube, and then they are going and hitting detectors, which are these things. There are these detectors. It's got 4 connectors here, and there's another one here. Those are photo detectors, and there's 2 of them, and polarization and frequency and all of this stuff, when it goes through this box, then it'll change the polarization, and you'll have more light on one detector than the other if the frequency is too high, and if the frequency is too low, then you'll have more, then it'll be opposite. And so you subtract those, and that'll create a pattern on this oscilloscope here. So this oscilloscope is hanging above the table, inside the panels and everything. And it is going to have a signal that goes up and then down, and it crosses 0. So when it's up, it's above 0. When it's down, it's below 0, ideally. And then we have all of those other electronics to fix it at 0. But it needs to be close. It can't just do it if it's just like way off.
Red trace, and you increase.
I said that wrong. It's actually a yellow trace.
The amplitude of that sweep.
So now there's a bump. Now you see a bump on the yellow here. If you're looking on your phone, there's no way you're going to be able to see that. Sorry. It's already quite blurry. Yeah,
but this video wasn't made for its graphics quality. It was made as an instructional to people familiar.
It's certainly a lot clearer, like on my phone. I don't know if that is because if that was when I uploaded it to Google Drive or whatever, but Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it came up as being just over 1 gig for a 10-minute video that you sent, so it probably lost a lot in the compression.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Then-
mine was pretty blurry, but I was mostly interested in what you were saying, and of course I've had a few background conversations to go on as well. So the topic wasn't as new to me as it may be to some of our viewers here. And if you've just tuned in, Dr. Tap is explaining to us what goes on in his lab and how you set up to do the experimentation of cold atom interferometry. Sumami just said, "Wait, what am I looking at?"
So what you're looking at is a big thick table that a whole bunch of expensive optics and lasers are on top of, and then there are a bunch of cables that are routing signals all through into each other, and there is an oscilloscope here that has like a cool sciencey looking line on it that does science stuff. But what you're actually looking at is an instruction video for how to turn on and lock the lasers to the correct frequency for our experiment.
That is awesome.
And when you have when I was a new postdoc, I already had my PhD and I joined this lab. It took me several days, several weeks to learn all of these procedures. And that's because I've learned these same sort of types of procedures, but with a different, the software is different, the exact lineup is different. There are like different methods that you can do. It takes a graduate student a couple weeks to really learn it and then fix it. The actual hard thing is not operating it. The hard thing is fixing it, because there are a lot of figurative moving parts here. And there's also a lot of actual moving parts, but most of them are moving very, very, very small amounts. And yes, exactly.
Yeah, I know it's amazing. It's amazing how small the I don't want to say the product, but like the amount of room and equipment that goes into, because I've also seen bigger pictures of your entire lab, and we've had other conversations about other things, including gantry cranes, which we'll do a show about gantry cranes one time. So yeah, there you go. Yeah. That gives you a sense of like some of the scale.
Everything,
there's a bit of height.
Everything that we've seen so far, by the way, has all been behind this black curtain.
Yeah.
That you see. We've only been, and the entire video is only behind the black curtain. The glowing blue dot is actually on this table off to the right. This is where we're going to be, but this is like the main feature in the lab. It just went vertical a few weeks ago. And we're going to be doing ultra cold atoms and then sending them up and letting them fall, and it's going to be awesome.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I think we will have Dr. Tap back to talk just about dropping atoms from 30 feet up in the air, or 9 meters or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, certainly continue on, but I think even here, I don't know, we haven't even reached the halfway point, and this is all happening in a very small, relative to the whole lab. This is happening in a very small little piece of it, as you pointed out. But there's a lot going on here. This is not.
Yeah, it's definitely the densest part of the lab. This is the main optical table. Most of the lasers are on it. Most of a lot of the stuff is. Yeah.
Yeah, I see Andrew has the same kind of super serious sense of humor that I do. All right, keep on rolling.
Use a set point.
So now I am manually
until you
changing a setting. There's a that was bad. There is a particular box here that's highlighted. You probably can't see it, and I'm pressing buttons on a keyboard to change manually. So I talked about how I plugged the piezo controller into another box so that it would ramp. So that's making this mirror go like this, right? I'm making it go forward and back. Now what I'm doing manually is I'm changing where the center of that motion is. So I'm like, okay, it actually needs to be over here, or maybe it needs to be like over here.
Yeah.
By the way, generally you're going to have curved mirrors. I guess it would be a little bit easier if I just did this, because people might be like, why are the mirrors curved?
I think people appreciate your air accordion being like on point.
Yeah.
Signal over there, which looks a little bit wonky, but we're not going to go into that right now.
So there is a yellow trace on here that I am moving around, and it's going up and down and up and down. And
you turn
I
down
need to center
that,
that,
and that little feature is like hopefully fairly centered. It's
right there. You can see it there. So you see how it goes down and then up. It's not quite symmetrical. I'm saying in the video, I'm saying that it looks a little wonky, but there is a curve that starts low and then goes up high, and that is when we eventually flick a switch. All of this feedback system, the PID controller is doing electronic feedback to make sure that it stays at the 0 bit. But if you're really, really, really far away, then it doesn't have because the feedback system can only change the mirror a little bit. It can't change it like that much. But I can, sitting there on the computer and pressing a button, I can change it like all that much. And then the extra little bit just to keep it on point is done by the electronics.
Yeah, so we're looking at the oscilloscope reading is actually on that little screen there that's now zoomed in a bit more, and so you're looking at the dip in the dip in the graphic output there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are multiple lines, and some of them are like overlapping with each other, and it's all very blurry and not that easy to see. But yeah.
That's
do some of that.
All right.
And then you can unplug this.
So now now what I've completed doing here is I have made sure that the setting, the laser is pretty close to resonance. If I scan the thing with that thing that I just unplugged it from, then it's sweeping over the resonance. That's what that S shape sort of is that's where the resonance is. And again, that's from like detectors that are comparing how bright a signal is after it passes through some vapor of atoms and has its polarization slightly rotated and all that fun stuff. But awesome. I have approximately put it in the correct position, and now I'm plugging it in.
Output of the piezo, and you press both of these at the same time.
And now that laser is locked. That laser is exactly where I want it to be.
And so the current basically is feeding back into, it's complicated. It's actually very elegant though. Then 707, you do similar thing. Unplug that in the 707.
This is a different laser.
Green trace.
This laser is less important. But if we don't have this laser, then we're going to get like 1,000 times fewer atoms. If we don't have the blue laser, we don't get any atoms. But if we don't have this red laser, then maybe it's 100 times. Because all of the atoms will eventually end up in some wrong quantum state that we don't like.
Over there. And
now I'm adjusting that one.
Point here.
This part is somewhat repetitive.
Bring that over. And that was already very close.
This one is way more visible. This error signal here, where it starts off high and then goes low, it's way bigger. The 707 locking signal is always
it's a little hard to see, but when I put it
so we could probably, and
yeah.
often you can just come in, and after you turn all the lasers, you can just press lock.
Normally, I don't do all of these steps because normally I can just turn things on and I can just press lock because the previous day it was good. So today it's probably going to be good, but not always. Sometimes you got to redo it. And that's why I'm doing this video because then other graduate students, if they don't have somebody to ask, they can watch this video and be like, oh yeah, I forgot that step.
And so now that's locked. And probably we can just press lock on this guy and it will lock, and it did. But if it doesn't,
and this is the same
again,
sort of
same,
thing. This is the repetitive part of the video.
Plug into the function generator, increase some amplitude, and now we're looking for the pink trace. And it's not particularly close by, which was predictable based on where the piezo wanted to go. So I'm just moving this in some direction, hoping it goes in the right direction.
And now there's another little wavy line on the screen.
But it probably wraps on itself. So now that's the error signal. It looks a little bit janky.
This one always looks
679 janky. Always has looked a little bit more janky. And now the 707s, 461, and 679 are all locked, and that's everything that you need for the blue mod.
So at this point in the video, we've done all of the steps there in the lab. There are a couple other things elsewhere in the lab that have to be turned on. We've done all of the steps that are necessary to get the glowing blue dot. And these atoms are the temperature of these atoms is around like 10 millikelvin. Okay, it's 1 to 10 millikelvin. That is just a few thousandths above absolute zero. So they start off about 2 feet over to the left on this picture. They start off at 400 degrees because we have to heat them up in an oven to get them to come off of the metal. And then we're sending them down, and by shining the laser on them, we can slow them down so that they're, instead of being 400 degrees, now they are 1,000th of a degree above absolute zero.
Is this the right way to write it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The K is capital.
Oh.
Yeah, K is capital for Kelvin, but
fuck. That's why I was having trouble reading that other fucking paper. Because it had a little
yeah, because lowercase k is wave number typically.
It's wave number, okay.
Yeah, which is that's not a term that I expect you to. It's 2 pi over the wavelength, but I always
it's always 2 pi over the wavelength.
I have whenever, like, wherever I have a desk that I read papers and stuff a lot, I actually have to put on a Post-it note some of the basic formulas, because for some reason, you know how some people have trouble with like left and right. I don't have that problem, but I have a problem with.
There's a lot to keep straight, and remembering everything by rote memory isn't as good as understanding what it is and then going and finding the right thing to do the right thing, or the left thing if you have a problem with right and left. All right, let's keep rolling. I think we made it 3 minutes in.
The red mod,
you need to 430.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
689 ECDL, and so the 689 ECDL is this one. It has extra stuff because this actually uses a SILC, servo integrated laser controller.
This is a very jargon-heavy part.
That is being driven by this picoscope.
So you can't even see the thing that I'm pointing to. It's like literally not obvious even to me. I'm pointing at basically another box.
Providing ramping and stuff.
That's fair.
And so you open the picoscope software.
And it's basically an oscilloscope, but instead of having its own screen, it sends it to the computer. So that's what I'm looking at here.
The yellow or orange is the error signal for the PDH lock to the cavity. The blue is indicating a ramp, and you turn it on and off with this button here. This window, if you close, you have to find it. I think it's that thing. I don't remember, but it's not that hard to find.
And this is an example of me pointing out that this window right here that's sort of floating, you need to be able to press a particular checkbox here. And if you can't find this checkbox and you can't press the checkbox, then you're not going to be able to scan the frequency of this laser. And if you can't scan the frequency of the laser, you're not going to be able to see the little blips on this yellow curve. And if you can't see the blips on the yellow curve, then you don't know if you're close to a resonance or not. And if you accidentally close this thing and you don't know that you need to have this open, you can know everything else about how to turn all of this on. You can know all of it, and suddenly you're stuck and you're kind of blindly trying to figure out how to do a thing that nobody ever told you how to do. And so, like, the number of failure points is like enormous, and there's not really a way around that. It's just very complicated. And like, this is not a deep point that I'm making, right? It's kind of like if nobody ever told you that you need to have your foot on the brake when you turn a car on, then like maybe you would have trouble turning the car on.
Yeah, you probably would, or sometimes you got to put the clutch in. Old trucks and most motorcycles, you don't need to do any of that. You just need to be in neutral.
Okay, well that might, yeah, I don't know. But
and we actually say in the trucking industry, a trucker's truck is one that you can start from the ground without your foot or hand on the clutch.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So you turn the signal on, so then it ramps, and you want to find the correct feature. This is not the correct.
So there is a feature here. It may not be obvious.
I know this because I look at these things a lot.
But it might look to somebody else like it's the correct feature, but it's not. And like I said in the video just now, I know that because I look at these things a lot.
So now we will just change the piezo.
And you'll notice this word piezo keeps coming up. Because basically the actuator of choice, the thing that moves a mirror to control the frequency, is always on a piezo, because you can then move stuff in a very controlled way, small distances, by applying a voltage.
And find a much bigger feature eventually. Like that. So
now there's sort of three spikes that go up and down, and the center one is largest on this yellow curve. And that is due to a complicated thing called a pound driver Hall lock. When we take the light from this thing and we shine it through an ultra stable cavity that's actually under vacuum, and the distance between those two mirrors does not change. It is fixed from one day to the next. So it changes very slowly. And then we do some other fancy stuff with the laser light to shine it on, and it creates this error signal, and it happens to look like this sort of trident kind of thing here.
Now you can see that there's a little bit of the red peak. Well, now it's
not the red peak.
The red peak is the transmission through the cavity.
So now there you see the red, and it actually right here at the middle, there is a little spike in the red, but it's not very visible. And that is how much light is going through a cavity. Basically another two mirrors. Like if you have two mirrors and one of them is partially silvered, then if you send light in from the outside, the light will only go through the cavity if it has exactly an integer number of wavelengths inside the cavity. It won't even get into the cavity, because it needs to resonantly interact with the cavity. And
Laser's lock, you always want that to be like higher.
It can't do that. So
higher is always better for that. Lock, turn off the signal generator, and then go here to where it says lock, and go up to lock, and now it's locked. And so
now it's locked. And now that red line is way up high. And that means that a lot of light is going through a thing that only lets light through if it's just at the right frequency. And this is a lot more precise than the other laser locks. Like this will keep the laser to within like 20 kilohertz at absolute frequency. So the frequency is 434 terahertz. So let's imagine instead it was 40 kilohertz. Tera, then giga, then mega, and then kilo. So
is it safe to
a
say
billion,
that's many orders
like a
of
factor of a
magnitude?
bit? Yeah, it's the frequency of this thing is controlled to within a billionth of its total frequency. So like if this was oscillating at a billion times per second, this is keeping it oscillating at a billion times per second plus or minus 1 time per second. The other ones, it's like a billion times per second plus or minus 1,000 or something. It's still very precise, but it's less precise, and that's because you need to have this particular light be much more exact, because it's a lot harder to get the atom to transition between those energy levels, and that's because of quantum mechanics and the solution to the Schrödinger equation. Yeah,
You can see that red curve, the transmission is way.
and the reason that the yellow or orange curve here is suddenly way bigger compared to what it was here is because right here in the middle where you see this spike, that's when the air signal goes up and then down, pass through zero, and then it settles back out to zero. So it goes up, and then there's a very steep slope that goes down through zero. And that's the error signal. You want to keep that at zero, but while the laser's living its life, it sort of drifts a little bit this way, and then it drifts a little bit that way. And so the electronics, whenever it gets too high, they're pushing it back down, but then maybe it goes too low and they got to push it back the other way. And it has to do that really, really fast.
And now it's locked, and you can see that red curve, the transmission is way higher. So that is locked now, and now we go back to here. This is the solstice.
So now we have locked 4 lasers, and we have one more to go.
It's the thing that the equinox here is pumping, and you generally you want monitor A to show the A-line dither. That's for feed forward.
I'm explaining that various settings have to be set to the correct thing, or else a different thing later on won't work. A lot of other stuff will still work, but this other thing later on that is to make it even better, it won't work properly. But that's not obvious. Like in the lab, that's completely not obvious. So that's why I'm pointing it out.
And that actually matters. Even though it says monitor, it matters that be on eidolon dither, because the feed forward box that cable only gets the right signal when this is set to that thing. So you need to set monitor A to eidolon dither. Monitor B is a lock error thing, and it's the blue curve that's going all wonky. When it's very far away, it'll be like going really fast and stuff. So the less rapidly that thing is moving, the more settled down it is.
And this is, so I was just talking about how there's a signal that the software that's controlling the Titanium Sapphire Laser, that's the laser that's powered by the other laser. And this software shows some traces. It's basically an oscilloscope on the screen, and over time the lines will go up and down. And one of them basically, if it's moving a lot, then that laser is not settled down. and it takes some time to settle down. It is not a waste of a good sapphire. Okay, this is the best use of a sapphire.
Well, and like how fast does you wear out a sapphire doing this?
These lasers, when they behave well, have a lifetime of many years. They do deteriorate. Generally, you can probably service them by taking out the things and cleaning them very nicely. I mean, it's eventually you might acquire some sort of film on the surface of the sapphire or on the mirrors.
Okay.
Or on...
It's a matter of like a pristine environment kind of situation.
Yeah. And it's, it's in a sealed box. That if you open the box, then you voided your warranty. Although at this point, M Squared is so bad about responding to emails. We sent them back and it was like 3 years.
Okay, well, we're not disparaging any specific company, but we might not be super happy with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I have I did write them a strongly worded email. Hey Stop and Hey Commander has come into the show, and wanted to thank them and welcome them to the show. And we're having a nice chat about TAPS Lab. We have almost reached the 2-hour mark, and I think we've made it 3 or 4 minutes into the video. Or have we made it? We're doing
pretty,
okay.
We've gotten a lot because it's, and that's pretty typical. Like
up a little bit.
The stuff is front loaded.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff happening at the beginning, and a lot of me asking questions. Like, what's a Galvatron?
I mean, please, yeah.
The Galvatron is my favorite ride at County Fair. Wait a second, that's not
right now, the way we're doing this is we're using the mod waves meter.
So this is some program. It's another device that we couple light into a fiber and then plug it into this thing, and it tells us the frequency in terahertz of the laser. And unfortunately, like we would like it to tell us like 3 or 4 more decimal places, but the resolution of this particular instrument is not that high, because to get one that is that high, you need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Which doesn't have a ton of
and it's freaking out right now.
By the way, right now you can see the TISAF is going through a mode hop, and it's just having a stroke.
Like this curve is like flipping out, and that number is changing a lot.
What is part of the problem is that the output PD is rather low right now.
So there's a number that I'm pointing to on the screen, and that number should be bigger. And the number isn't bigger, so I got to solve that.
This is a thing that you solve most of the time by doing a one-shot, and you want this. Hopefully this will go up to over 9.
And so what happened there was I clicked this button, and there are actually on the Titanium Sapphire, there's a mirror that has knobs that you can do to adjust the tilt and tip and tilt in 2 directions of it. So you can tilt it up and down, and you can tilt it left and right. And those knobs have little motors, which they're not actually motors. They're actually piezo actuators again. And it's changing those a little bit in order to basically maximize the amount of power that's coming out of this laser.
All right.
0.9 rather.
And you're just this on the computer, you're asking it to fire through something to test to see if
so
I done something, right?
What I did was I pressed a button, and that was like, okay, that told the computer to change the angle of this mirror by applying voltages to these piezo actuators, and it changes those, and it follows some algorithm that it does internally. And it's like, okay, it tries a whole bunch of different like positions, and then it chooses the one that gave it the most amount of power, and then it stops moving it, and then you have more power. coming out of your laser. And you didn't have to manually fiddle a knob. It used to be, the first version of this laser didn't have this. So every day you would then have to go and manually turn the knob. And that knob is sensitive. It's, you know how like you've got knurls on like a coin? Like the ridges on the outside? The knobs have the same thing. And some of these mirrors are so sensitive that if you change it by 1 or 2 knurls, like that's how precise you need it to be. And so it's a lot easier if you can do it electronically, and you don't have to go and physically do the thing, because it's very easy to just accidentally turn it too much, and then and that's annoying. And I did have to do that manually the other week, and it took several days of twiddling the knob and twiddling some other knobs, in trying a whole lot of different positions to figure out exactly where it's supposed to be. And I just sort of sat there in a chair next to the laser, put on my safety goggles, and I have a picture of that if I scroll up somewhere. Because I can't find it, but I sort of sit there and twiddle, and I spent hours each day just twiddling a little knob a little bit, and then occasionally like loosening something, moving it a fraction of a millimeter, tightening it back down, and then spending another hour twiddling the knobs just to see if I could get an extra 5% out of the laser. And I just sat there with my headphones on, listening to true crime podcasts. It was great. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy twiddling the knobs, but I also enjoy turning things on and having it just work. Where did Al go? Al has left us. Al, what the frickin' heck did I just do? Ah.
Okay. All right. Let me see if this is working. Hello? Are we here?
Yeah.
Arrived.
Am I back? Sorry.
I hear you, Tap. I hear you. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. All right. Oh, it's coming live on the phone too. Okay. I am so sorry about Layla's participation going this way, but and were you able to keep your spot on your video there, Tab?
I just got
we
it.
have returned. Holly has confirmed she hears us.
So when I noticed that you were gone, I went and accidentally exit, I closed my entire browser. And if I hadn't done that, I could have filled in the dead
you could have kept rolling because you would have been. I've had that happen on other streams, like Slim shows had that happen a couple of times, and we just keep rolling, and then he comes back in. This has been. We've reached the 2-hour mark here, and I'm sorry about the dead air situation, but we have an amazing community here, stuck around and chatted and went and had a smoke and stuff. I did know this, but only because I know you, Tab. The most precise clock in the world, because I do want to help the people that are like me and just like to listen while they're driving around or whatever. Maybe they're cleaning the house, or maybe they're changing the ball bearings in their turbo encabulator.
Yeah.
The most precise clock in the world uses ultra-cold strontium atoms and ultra-stable lasers that are locked to their frequency using exactly the same concepts and the same element, which is strontium. Strontium, a lot of us don't handle strontium day to day, right? But we don't realize what we rely upon. And I know that I don't think these things are directly related, but I know that some of these precise clock measurements that we have from these precise clocks allowed us to see things like the delays to things like GPS, and satellite orbits and stuff like that. Having that precision allows us to measure how far off we are, and this proves relativity.
All atomic clocks. All GPS satellites have multiple atomic clocks inside them.
Yeah.
That helps, and then they're compared to and then they send pings to other satellites, and they have to include the corrections both from special and general. Special is included within general relativity.
Special is encapsulated in general relativity. As we all know, we will do a show on relativity one day too, because I think Tap and I became good friends specifically because of relativity. Because we were having a chat about it.
But if you didn't include the effects of relativity, GPS would stop working after a matter of hours or days, certainly weeks. Depending on how precise you need it, it might be significantly faster than that.
And we're not directing this comment at Alan from Space Audits and Shane, the plagiarist, but if you happen to be listening, guys,
they think that it can be accounted for in an ether model, and it can't. Well, they also don't think that satellites exist. So,
if you just deny something's a thing, I guess that's fine. And they say, well, you're just denying ether exists. So it's like,
there's no need.
We're not denying it. We know that it was proven not to be a thing.
Yeah,
they don't understand the most basic of things. Like, it was in the 19th century that they realized if you kept rotating the experimental apparatus and detected zero aether wind, that you
have a problem with your model.
You would have a problem with the aether model, which led to relativity. It was that experiment. Like, Einstein specifically says that in one of his books on relativity has that very early on in the thing. And I always like to think about the fact that even though like other people, like, I think is Lenny still at your institution?
Yeah.
Dr. Susskind.
Leonard Susskind. His office
like, not that I don't know him well enough to call him Lenny. He's never met me.
I've never actually spoken with him.
But he's
the physics department is a lot of people. So
But
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of my favorite lecture series on relativity is from Leonard Susskind, and it's on YouTube, and
Yeah.
it's fantastic. I'm sure you've
I've
listened
watched
to it
that
too.
whole series.
I think it's only like 12, 13 hours long,
Yeah,
which is really amazing, fast
well,
breakdown.
it's all the lecture. Like he's teaching
Teaching students in the lecture, like it's a
he's
lecture
teaching
hall.
undergrad. I think he's teaching an undergraduate class at
Yeah.
Stanford.
Okay.
And it's awesome that like you can find that. Like I've never actually taken a class on relativity specifically. I've done not on relativity specifically. I have learned like special relativity. It comes up in other contexts. It comes up in both mechanics classes because when you have stuff going fast, you no longer have Galilean mechanics or Galilean relativity. You need to incorporate special relativity. And when you talk about electricity and magnetism at a high like at a level where if you're talking about 4 vectors, then you need to talk about special relativity. General relativity, I've never actually taken a class and learned it. I've done some independent study. I have the big black book titled Gravitation by Meissner, Thorne, and Wheeler. And I'm like slowly working my way through that, but
that is not Ken Wheeler, just for the record.
No, that's John Archibald Wheeler. Who,
I do not have that book, and I probably should. I should do more reading.
That book is like £7.
What's that in regular?
It's like 3
kilos.
No, it's like 3 kilograms. It's like it's a hefty book. It's like it's I wasn't exaggerating. It's that thick and like full size. It's a phenomenal book. I love that book.
All right. I gotta get myself a big ass book like that. Oh, apparently I'm too loud on my show.
Can't.
My daughter and her dog are running around doing agility in the basement here. So if you hear some panting and stuff, it's probably still me, but you never know. Might be the dog. All right. Well, I will. I'll put the video back up, and we can continue on. We've made it through. I think we've covered 8 square inches of your lab, but it's all the action happens in the compact area. But we'll have to do like a redo on when you get the vertical experiment going and see if there's any major changes to how you do things. You'll probably make a series of these cold atom interferometry TikToks with your buddy Hunter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you
were going to post it to TikTok, I didn't know you could post 10-minute videos to TikTok. Viral. But he thinks that people are going to eat it up. Mostly, because I kind of vomit a lot of jargon. I guess that's a selling point.
I mean, it could be. Like, a lot of people do like jargonese nomenclature.
Yeah.
Please keep her away from the cords. The dog just came over to give me a visit. No, you're too close to the cords. You're too close to the cords. Don't do it again. All right, Tap, take it away.
What is the... Oh, part of the problem is that the output PD is rather low right now.
So the power on the Titanium Sapphire Laser is low, and that means that it's unhappy, and the frequency is just like freaking out and jumping all around. So I got to press the button, do the thing. And this is like
most of the time by doing a one shot, and you want this. Hopefully, this will go up to over 9,
which it did.
0.9 rather. And you can also see now that the thing is sort of like freaking out even more. But this has settled down, and
now that plot, which was previously like jumping all over the place, now it's steady. But I have 2 peaks here, and I got to make those peaks be the same because I'm comparing 2 lasers. I have one laser and I'm comparing it to another laser because I have a low power laser that I locked before. That was this lock. I had that low power laser, and now that's exactly like at the frequency we want it to be. And now I want to make this laser the same frequency, because this laser is a lot more powerful. It has a lot more power. So we can take that so we can lock the low power laser very, very, very precisely, and then we can use a different mechanism that's tunable in and of itself to lock this laser to almost the same frequency, but not exactly. We can lock it so that it's 500 megahertz away or 400 megahertz away, and that gives us control independently of that other laser. Whereas the first laser, the low power laser, this little smaller peak on this plot on the screen, that is fixed by a physical set of mirrors that don't change. Those mirrors, like, it's the one thing in this entire video that is not on a piezo. It is a ultra stable cavity that is inside a vacuum chamber and then held at exactly 33.91 Celsius, because that happens to be the temperature at which the material that the glass material that the thing is made out of, its coefficient of thermal expansion crosses zero at 33.91 Celsius, which means if you keep it at that temperature, then to first order, it won't change in length if its environment fluctuates in temperature. Even though we're stabilizing the temperature, it's still going to fluctuate a little bit at a hundredth of or a thousandth of a degree level, and then so we want it to be insensitive to those residual fluctuations. And then but because the frequency at which the frequency of that low power laser is fixed by the distance between those mirrors, we don't change the distance between those mirrors because they're under vacuum and ultra stable. That's the whole point. So the frequency that we just locked this lower power laser to is not exactly where we want it. It's a few hundred megahertz away. So now we're going to lock the other laser to the first laser by overlapping the beams. And when you overlap two laser beams, unless they're exactly the same frequency, you're going to get what's called a beat note. This is exactly the same as if you take two tuning forks that are close together but not exactly the same, and you hit them both. It's gonna, instead of sounding like ooh, it'll sound like ooh, 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 and they'll beat against each other, because sometimes the waves are out of phase and they cancel each other out, and sometimes the waves are in phase and they amplify each other. And the same thing is true with light. If you overlap two laser beams that are not exactly the same frequency, then you're going to actually see the light is going to start flashing at the difference of their frequency. And then you can feed that into, then you can measure that on a photodetector. So literally, if you have a photodetector there, it'll see the amount of light go up and down, even though you're taking two beams that are both perfectly continuous and overlapping them. And so then you get an alternating signal that then you can send into a bunch of electronics and turn that again into an error signal, because you can compare that to the beat note that you want. And then you feed that electronic back through another PID controller and feed that back into another piezo mirror inside of the TISAF's laser cavity. So but that occurs when these two peaks are basically overlap, because this is a very low resolution device comparatively.
Now we want to bring this is the peak from the TISAF, and we want to bring that peak onto the peak from the ECDL.
ECDL, by the way, stands for external cavity diode laser. There's a bunch of laser stuff, and then it sends light out, and then you have a mirror outside that sends it back in.
And we do that with the Eidolon tuner, and
so
move that like that.
inside the titanium sapphire laser, there is a plate of of glass that when you tilt it, the laser is going through it, and then it refracts, and it changes the path length a little bit. And that is sort of a coarse knob that you can use to control the frequency. It's a coarse knob. It's not a fine knob. And so that's the knob that we do to make those two peaks. That before it was a tall peak and then a shorter peak. Now they've melded into one.
To know that the setting that this wants to be at is 434.787 thereabouts, or 786.
Yeah, thereabouts.
And somebody is knocking at the door.
They're upstairs.
And so when it's in the correct vicinity, then you can apply the Eidolon lock. And now this is grayed out, and this sort of does a thing. And
so now the coarse knob has been fixed, and the laser is going to keep its frequency to it's narrowed it down by a factor of a lot. I don't know, maybe a few hundred, few thousand. It's a lot. It's going to be. It's still unstable within a certain range, but that range has gotten way smaller. Because this actuator that controls the very rough coarse wavelength has now been locked.
Now
we have the fine tuner.
And now you look over here, and the last thing to lock is the Vescent. The Vescent is the thing that locks the beat note, and this is the error signal. So we need to get that to show a thing that you'll see in a moment. But we're pretty.
And this is the part of the video that is actually the reason that we took the video, because Hunter wanted a reference to see to remember exactly basically which steps and how this thing is supposed to look, because we actually changed the way we lock these lasers. Like 3 months ago, we were using a more precise wavelength meter that gave more digits of accuracy. The reason we're not doing it now is because it had to move to make room for the tower, and so now that device is in a different room.
Yeah, this hits me as like the reason why the video was made in the first place is to make sure that people know everything that needs to be done, because now that you've been working there for a bit, you might do this like almost automatically. But I've always thought, and it's something I've always thought is missing from a lot of industries, is in the aviation industry, they have the pilot's pre-flight checklist. And there's a whole bunch of checklists. It's not just the pre-flight, but you don't do anything without checking off that you've done something. And I've always thought trucking would benefit from this. There's a lot of things you do that are just sort of automatic. Like there's a lot of things when you learn a new thing, and they show you how to use a machine or whatever it is, you think about it really hard, right?
There's literally a checklist up here.
Yeah. So you've got a checklist, right?
Yeah.
But
lasers.
This actually shows you visually what that is.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think you should wear polished helmets and like yell at each other across the room. Things like
that sounds fun.
Locking laser 1, laser 1 lock. Locking laser 2, laser 2 lock. Yeah, all that kind of that would be hilarious. It would be very space ballsian.
Show a thing that
coin a phrase.
Space ballsian.
Ballsian. I think that was. I'm adding that to the list of. Is that an aphorism? I don't really know. I'm gonna go look up what an aphorism is.
It's an aphorism. But
it's an aphorism.
Yep.
Damn straight it is.
You'll see in a moment. But we're pretty far away. So I'm just going to change this by a bunch and go down until I see that thing jumping around. Like, it's starting to jump around.
You guys can come down.
It's safe. And I can't find it right now.
There it is. Come on, it's right there.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So now.
So this, I'm looking at this line on this oscilloscope here, and this line, it's going to be an air signal that's going to be above, and then it's going to cut down below. But that slope is very sharp. So I'm like changing it a lot, and I just noticed that the entire thing went from above it to below it. So now I know that if I make smaller steps in the button that I'm pressing, if instead of changing the ones place of this setting, I change the tenths place, then I'll be able to
Here it is.
get the air signal to show up and be crossed here. And that's
okay. So now that is the air signal that we want to see.
Not very visible.
And you want the high thing to be aligned with the high thing of the ramp.
Okay, so on this oscilloscope, it's very hard to see, but there is a pink trace here on the scope that is a triangle wave. It goes up and then down with a steady slope, and then it repeats that, and that is an indicator of what this little mirror is doing. The little mirror is going back and forth, and as it does that, the frequency changes again, and when it crosses a particular frequency, then suddenly when it's overlapped with the other laser and it processes through all of its electronics, you have a negative signal instead of a positive signal. And so I'm going to be locking to this part where it crosses zero.
The
But it's very
ramp.
steep.
And here we just lock.
And so now it's locked.
And it should look something like that.
And now this thing is fluctuating.
That is the carrier.
Because whenever it drifts a little bit away from resonance, the servo has to push it back on to resonance. And so it'll like look noisy, but it's actually extremely stable.
The feed forward, when it's properly optimized, should eliminate most of that.
Yeah, there's one other thing that would
the
help.
transients are because I'm loud.
So if you look at it, you're going to notice that when I speak, literally when I speak, this yellow curve is kind of go and like, have a bunch of noise on it.
Should eliminate most of that. But the transients are because I'm loud.
They are literally because I am.
And that's it.
And there we go. That's how you turn on the lasers in our lab and lock them.
All right, and on the next episode of Lasers with Tap, we're going to find out how to trap a cold atom in a laser. Maybe. I don't know. You'd have to make the video of that. I've seen some images from your lab that I think people would find really cool if you can get Hunter to take some more. And you could... I think people would really like seeing... I know you said it's like kind of this boring like box at the nearer to the beginning, where it's the round thing that has the copper coiling for the induced magnetic current around the laser situation.
This?
Yeah, that thing there. Yeah, that was an image, not part of the video, right?
Yeah.
So like this particular item here, I mean, it does look like the window on a submarine.
Yeah, it is like the window on a submarine.
Together. It's like really,
this is a vacuum chamber.
The vacuum chamber.
The pressure inside that is lower than the pressure outside of the International Space Station.
That's
or
pretty
at least
good.
Very comparable to it.
Is that measured in torr?
Yeah, it's about 10 to the negative 11 torr.
10 to the negative 11. That's pretty decent.
Yep,
that's pretty decent. And that allows you to control...
you need all of those things and everything, and then there's a copper gasket, and it all has to be tightened to keep, because air really wants to get in, and some still gets in. Like you can't really get it. You can't really make one of these that gets down to like 10 to the negative 15 torr. I don't think that's even possible. With a room temperature like
physical
setup.
limitations on
Yeah,
on
because
what can be done.
The reason is that everything does a process called outgassing. The stuff just releases gas. Sometimes that gas will just be whatever the thing is made out of. Like, so if you have a hunk of strontium, it's going to release strontium atoms. We want the strontium atoms, but we don't want the atoms of glass, of copper, of steel, of all of those things. But the main thing that happens in outgassing is actually other crap. Like glass. Like things that glass are has outgassing. It's really low. That's why you use glass.
Glass is amazing for that. Yeah,
it's really good. But there's stuff. Protons, hydrogen gas. It's actually the protons themselves. They find an electron later on once they get inside. But a proton can just worm its way through solid glass. It can just it's because they're so small. Single proton, it can just get in there, and then it sort of just gets in. And so if you went out into the middle of completely interstellar space, intergalactic space, in a giant void, many megaparsecs away from anything. The density of it's like one molecule per like cubic meter over there. If you just had a piece of glass, like it's just going to be sloughing off a lot more than that. It's going
to they say like I remember talking to like an aerospace engineer about how so many types of materials in a vacuum basically just boil off. Solid and liquids will just essentially boil in a vacuum because the search for equilibrium is real.
If you take water and put it in a vacuum pump, it will boil while freezing. That's the funny thing. It starts boiling, but the temperature is plummeting, and then you'll end up with like ice. You'll get chunks of ice in boiling water. Because there is no liquid. Liquid is not a stable phase there.
No, it's and we think of a lot of things that we think about interacting with. We don't think in the quantum realm ourselves. Like we think about it, like you think about it for a living. I think about it because I'm super interested in it. But you can't see it. And we talked about that at the beginning of the video, and we talked about where a lot of pseudoscientists and science deniers come from is from these things that are hard to see and understand. And yet people that see and understand these things as concepts have developed, like, I don't know, I'd say I didn't count them out, but I bet there was 17 or 18 different pieces that you specifically identified in the chain of equipment that makes this thing hold on to like a small puddle of atoms.
Clouds, those were just the ones that I identified.
And there's more to it. You can see more in the background, right?
I've made allusion to converting a signal on a photodetector into an electronic signal that goes up and then down through zero. To make an error signal. And sorry. I just swallowed weirdly.
Okay. I thought maybe one of the weasels was trying to get out.
That's why I had to swallow weirdly.
Anyway,
there's a lot of radio frequency electronics because we need amplifiers, we have function generators, and then we amplify the thing on the function generator, and then we apply that to a crystal called an acousto-optical modulator, which again is basically the piezo? That might not be technically the piezoelectric effect, but maybe it is. I'm not sure. But and it's basically this thing that when you vibrate it, it like will divert some light and also shift its frequency, and then you have to detect that with the photodetector and send that into a thing and mix it down with a reference signal from the same thing that you were using to drive it, and then you also have to chop it on and off and then demodulate that so that you're immune to noise and you're only looking at the signal that corresponds to the thing that you're trying to look at. and all of that, and like that, we have drawers in the lab. Let me see if I can find a. So here over here, there are 3 drawers that are sticking out, and there are just a ton of electronics in there, and everything that I'm plugging in here actually like goes through a bunch of that stuff. And I don't even understand exactly how it all works. Like, I don't actually know how an RF mixer like actually works. I just know that if you put in 2 signals, then you're gonna get the sum in different signals out, and it's a passive device. But yeah, like there's a ton of stuff. It's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been extremely educational and interesting, and I know I'm not the only weasel curious person out there. I really enjoyed having this conversation. I of course was able to watch the video a couple of times before this, so to sort of prepare for things that I would be particularly interested in asking about. But yeah, no, you've done an amazing job of explaining it. Mostly in I think what people would consider lay language, which is tough to do sometimes because like I'm a jargonese talker. I speak in jargonese. I spoke in jargonese in construction. I speak in jargonese in trucking, and it's just easier in an industry to have names for things, you know. I think we would love to have you back again, Dr. Tapp, to talk about other parts of what goes on in your lab, and I think getting like right into the titanium sapphire laser itself. In the title card for this video, I used the background is actually a screenshot of a titanium sapphire laser encasing part, but it's the green laser, it's not the titanium sapphire laser itself. It's the priming laser, I think, that glows green. That thing.
This guy.
Yeah.
So this was the last thing that got locked. Normally this is closed. And it's because it's very bright. Yeah,
and you have to wear special goggles or glasses and stuff. So I think people would like to see that. Yeah, look at that.
That's what. Yeah, and so it might look like my face is melting. That's because the laser light is specular. Like when a laser scatters on stuff, the light is coherent, so it'll interfere and destructively interfere and constructively interfere at different points, and so you get this speckle pattern as opposed to like a nice smooth thing, because it some spots are dark, and then like if you just shift a little bit, it's a whole thing. So my forehead isn't actually melting.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I am actually like an evil wizard Grinch person, though.
Well, we kind of knew that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know, and this is like, I mean, this is why you wouldn't use light like this for maybe photography reasons or videography reasons, but it does things that need to be done. And yeah, no, it's cool that you have this. So I think people would love to see the. I think we should have a video where we talk about the chamber and what goes on in there a little bit more. If you're up for that at some point, Hunter will take. A video.
Like we could talk about how you, because the way that you make these vacuum chambers. That's actually one thing that I've never actually done. That I've never assembled and baked down a vacuum chamber. One of the steps that you take is you heat up the thing while you're pumping it down. And you heat it up so that all of the crap that's in all of the stuff, in all the screws, in just the metal, in the glass, even the glass is always the clean, like most inert part. Glass is awesome. But as you heat all that stuff off to basically burn away all these like impurities that if you didn't are just going to be constantly seeping into your vacuum chamber. And so you bake it. You bake your vacuum chamber in an oven. Oftentimes you wrap heating tape around it. It's like, special stuff that you put current through and it heats it up. But sometimes, like if you assemble the thing on an optical breadboard on the steel table, you will literally build a little oven with bricks all around it, and you build like a little kiln, and then you heat that thing up to a few hundred degrees or whatever, and like you have like a hand built brick oven. and then you bring it back down, and you leave it that way for days to sort of evaporate away all of the crap that's on the thing, and that can let and then if you have an experiment, and you don't want to break vacuum, like if you can avoid ever like repressurizing it, that's good, because other stuff will get in and then get stuck to the walls, and then when you pump it back down it'll like go up. But so what will happen is, like, there was an experiment that was like decommissioned. It had reached the end of its life. It was somewhat old and obsolete, and so it was replaced by a new and better experiment in my first year of graduate school. And that vacuum chamber had been under vacuum continuously for 19 years. Wow. That vacuum was old enough to vote.
Yeah.
And it was really funny, because I remember when the last student was defending his thesis, and talking about their measure, like, stuff and various confounding factors. One of the questions was from the audience was, they were looking at the lifetime of the cloud, and it, you would have atoms and they would oscillate back and forth for like a long time, but not forever. And so that would slowly damp away. And the effect that they were trying to show was that theoretically it shouldn't damp at all. But of course, actually, there's still going to be some effects. And so they were like, well, could it be because of collisions with background gases? Like maybe the vacuum isn't that great. And my advisor, Eric, he like turned around and he was like, no, this vacuum is phenomenal. This thing has been under vacuum for 19 years. There's like not really measurable. It is measurable, but you have to use these sorts of techniques.
To
measure it. It's crazy.
And you do see like individual. You'll see like the action of like individual atoms falling out of the cloud and stuff like that you'd mentioned before, so you can detect.
You can individual atoms. We don't really have the resolution to see. We're dealing with many thousands of atoms at a time.
Yeah. Okay.
If things are working really well, many millions in the last stage. In the earlier stages,
yeah, when you get
millions
trapped together.
And billions. But these are not. They're not. Like at the end of the experiment, you'll have maybe 1 million atoms, maybe 10,000 atoms if it's bad. You can see 10,000 atoms. Our experiment can't see 10 atoms. There are experiments that can see single atoms.
Yeah, so that's a different type of lab doing different work with.
Yeah, and then a lot of those experiments, they have them in a grid because they interfere some lasers, and that creates a standing wave, and the atoms are trapped at the nodes of the standing wave, and they will have a very tightly focused laser that traps one atom, and then they can move it over here and put it next to another atom. and they can do that in a controlled way. And what you always do is you make a logo. Gas microscope.
Hey, Robin. Robin's saying hi to you.
Hello.
And Tori's back again, or just saying hi. Maybe Tori's been here the whole time. We are overlapping with so many great shows tonight, which is unfortunate. But we have to do the show when we can do the show, and I have to be quiet because people are starting to go to bed at my house. I would usually be in bed for an hour before now. I had a very strange night with my infected leg. I couldn't sleep last night.
Oh, no.
I finally fell asleep about an hour before I usually wake up for work, and then I went and had a nap, which made me late for the show. And but we're having fun. Oh yeah, you're on lunch. Yeah, Tori is a very busy lady that does not get. She gets no time for anything. She works more hours than I do, and but I work as many hours as I'm legally allowed to a lot of the time, especially in the summer. So Vandy, go ahead.
I shared another image.
Wait, add to stage. Okay, here we go. I hit the wrong button, but it's up here now.
So this is a lattice.
Okay.
And this is a zoomed in bit, and like this guy right here, that is one atom.
Yeah, that's cool. And I've seen images like that, but they weren't colored.
Yeah, and it's a false color. Like, and it's the distance between two neighboring atoms here is 640 nanometers. And the reason, like, and the atoms are not that big, by the way, because then it kind of looks like the atom is like 500 nanometers. It's not. It's just that's like literally the limit of the resolution. If it was infinitely small, it would still look this big because that's the resolution of the thing. It's really small. It's less than a micron. That's hard. That is really hard to do. You have to have a huge microscope objective. It has to be very close to the atoms so that you're collecting like almost half the light. And it's crazy. And there are experiments where they can pick these things up and rearrange them and make a picture of kind of whatever you want. It's nuts.
Yeah, I remember I know I've shared this video to you, but I don't think we've ever watched it together, where the guy prepares a set of a very small amount of material to be imaged in a chamber. It's a very small apparatus compared to like everything you have, but maybe like the actual chamber part is similar in size. But he prepares this stuff to get like as thin a film of a metal as possible, and then shoots something at it to get images of individual atoms. And I can't remember how thin it is, but it is extremely thin film of material.
That like the tunneling microscopes, like scanning.
Yeah, I think it is maybe a tunneling or a scanning electron or a tunneling electron microscope, right? That would be how they're imaged. Yeah, and that's just, this stuff is just amazing what we've managed to find and detect and see about, the quantum and beyond. And then that's kind of why I find this stuff so amazing. And the idea that the interaction with photons gives us this, because I spend a lot of my time. Is RB rubidium?
Yep. This is them spelling rubidium by removing atoms. This is it's lower resolution. So like when two are next to each other, it's a little bit blurry. But like here, you can tell that there is a row here that's one thick. But here it's like two thick. There's an atom missing there, because the atoms are bigger. So that
is fantastic.
You have to be able to address individual atoms to be able to create this.
Yeah, and
I'm unaware of any sort of thing that you can do where you're not able to poke individual atoms at will, and that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tori works harder than she's stronger than the strong force with this, eh?
Yeah, damn.
Why is it not? I'm trying to pull it back down. I'm not good at being a streamer, and I'm trying.
Are
I'm
you
trying
better
not
than
to
me?
be so loud. Yeah, science. Well, Andrew's right. Science is pretty sexy. It's very like, I guess. I mean, people that are tuning into me are either here for my my Adonis like qualities, or for just listening to Dr. Tapp explain science. But I'm a curious cat. I like to know about stuff, and the more I hear about something, the more I want to know about it. And I think that's just the way some people's brains work, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And
yeah.
if you're hanging out with
love
me,
this
that's probably how your brain works. So, Dr. Tapp, I think we should work on wrapping up the show. We've made it to almost 3 hours.
Yep.
So this is, I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to call it Good Science Saturday, but for people that are interested in seeing more of Dr. Tapp and seeing him in, I mean, this is certainly a casual enough environment, but he was being pretty serious about this work in his lab. But it leads to interesting things, and I think that's one of the questions that came up. I think it was Andrew that asked that question, like, what does this lead to? And things that leads to more knowledge. And
yeah,
I wanted to say something about this because those people that don't know me wouldn't know this about me, and those that do know that I do a lot of work trying to advocate for patients who are dealing with different diseases. In particular, I deal with diabetes and obesity. Those are diseases I live with personally. People in my family do as well. And so I go to a lot of conferences, and I watch a lot of material, and I read a lot of studies, and I'm actually quite unexpectedly, I'm a published co-author of a scientific paper and another one on its way. And that's because I'm interested in this stuff, because it affects me. And so I'll talk about this stuff from time to time. But what I find interesting is the more you know about a little bit of something, you want to know even more about it and what's going on. And the people working on this are literally putting effort into research that leads to amazing discoveries in medical science and in other sciences. And our exploration of the world around us leads to direct improvements for our lives. So studies that you're doing here may lead eventually to other devices that are just used in the field for whatever type of exploration. But think about where we are with medical imaging alone.
Yeah.
And I can see how medical imaging may be improved by this type of thing. It may not be directly improved by this direct experiment that you're showing, but the more we know about how matter interacts with things and how photons interact, the better and better we get at handling this stuff. So by using, and lasers have been used successfully in some types of medical.
Oh yeah, they're super. Yeah, they're super handy.
Yeah.
If you could shine a laser on somebody's skin and have it not just get all diffused and stuff, and just like go inside right to where you want, that'd be awesome. There are ways that you can do things along those lines. People are working literally on trying to make lasers like propagate in a predictable fashion through like living stuff.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier when it's not living. It can be the same stuff but frozen, because
it's moving. And there's actually one of the most recent things I watched was a documentary about some of the first people to do islet cell implantation experiments, the first human experiment on that. And that's a very interesting medical technology or medical development that may help a lot of people living with diabetes maybe like overcome it or manage it much better. It's just amazing. And actually, like it's not something that I'm erudite on enough to like really give an explanation of, but it basically is an implantation of it's something like a stem cell that helps people living with type 1 diabetes develop the ability to make their own insulin. It sort of re-ups the pancreas that's not functioning right. It makes it function better. That's a really bad explanation of what happens. But this type of thing affected people because some people had great responses and some people had mediocre and some people had none. It doesn't work for everybody, right? This was an earlier on thing that it may get better and better, but participating in scientific research at the human study level is amazing. That people are willing to do that, and I get thanked a lot for just coming to share the stories I have about where I live, because patient advocacy and having the medical community understand where patients are coming from is important. And I won't get on my soapbox about it. It's just that's how I got into it. And I started learning a lot. And then the more you know about something, the more you learn, well, the reason why they can do such like small incisions into people or do these implantations like with this very precise stuff is because of the development of like laparoscopic technology or developing such small and precise implantation devices that you don't have to like slice somebody open, that type of thing, right? Like there's so many things like that that are developed, and medical technology isn't the only reason to. But if you have nothing other than your own selfishness at heart, you or a loved one may develop a disease that needs intervention. And there's been a lot of words said and a lot of ink spilled over the current state of things in politics. But one of the things that seems to be happening is the dismantling of funding for scientific research. And I'd like to point out that scientific research is sometimes hard to understand why a little piece is being done. Yeah. But take a look at Taft's lab. Take a look at every one of those things he pointed at, and then maybe think like, would you say it's fair to say there's 5 to 10 other pieces you didn't point at further down?
I mean, for every one, there's probably 10. Like it's even that is short change. Like we
could have conversations about
I could talk, or somebody could, for days about the engineering that goes into making one of the mirrors in our lab.
And this is the type of thing
it's not just like silver on a thing. In fact, a lot of the times it's not silver. Like the mirrors that I was working with today, it was really annoying because most visible light goes right through them because the laser that I was controlling is an invisible laser. And so they have to layer down very thin layers of like alternating metals. And all of that requires like particular chemical deposition technologies that I don't understand. And then they have to, characterize and measure the flatness of this surface. And they can be like, okay, this mirror is flat to within a quarter of a wavelength over its surface. And you want that because if you have a bumpy mirror, you're gonna have blurry crap. Like if your rear view mirror is warped or something, it's very hard to use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
that's a mirror.
Having a convexity of a mirror can be really good for seeing a wider range of things. But again, like you good optics are important. One thing that I don't know how many people in the general driving public deal with this, but I clean the mirrors on my truck at least once a day. And in salt spray days, it's 3 or 4 times a day because my mirrors are so important to my ability to see. And that's for something at like the macro level of optics. And, that like the idea that optics is part of driving and it's something as simple as a silver glass surface to see is amazing. I read an article today about the rolling out of Volvo's doing camera mirrors now on many transport trucks, and they're rolling out 20. One company bought 20 trucks with no side view mirrors. They're just cameras that show what's going on. around this.
I feel like having both options would be good because
I think so
cameras
too.
will break it in ways that mirrors are less likely to break.
It
but
wasn't clear.
Vice versa is also true.
Yeah, it wasn't clear if they didn't bolt the mirrors on at all. Like, but I got the impression they were going totally mirrorless. I'd rather have some of each. But that ability to see is amazing. Because you can see things that a mirror can't adjust to see.
Yeah, I would like to be able to see like the ground around where my tires are or something. Just generically, that would be nice. Having a little camera or something at the front that tells me exactly how far away I am from the thing. Yeah, could be not like my new car. I have a rear view camera now, and it's awesome. It's like I can back up, and before I was like, I don't know how far away I am from the thing behind me. I was probably like that far away, but I didn't know that. Now I can get to like that far, like with just as much confidence as before I was like stopping like that far. You probably could just like YOLO it and with your eyes closed get like within that because you know exactly how big your like vehicle is and you have that. It's like an extension almost of like yourself. I do not have
that many hours doing it and then being like in. And one thing I suck at is backing it, like doing what they call like dock backing, like backing in between trailers to go to a dock and getting totally straight. I'm terrible at. But when people ask me to do like really crazy shit,
everybody is.
You're better than most. Like there's drivers that do that all the time. They're amazing at it. They do really well at it. Like I can do it. It takes me longer to set up for it. But I'm really good at figuring out how to back it of like construction sites and do like weird S turns and you know, like the other day I backed down into a river valley. It took like 15 minutes to do, but like they had trailers and things on either side. There was like there were ditches on either side of this roadway because this roadway is actually like a walking trail. It wasn't meant for vehicular traffic or truck traffic at least of all. But like you might be comfortable on a motorcycle, maybe in a small car, but you need 4-wheel drive, right, to get up and down this like muddy hill. And I had to like back a trailer down with a couple of C-tainers on it and then move some other shit around. This is something that you do in the type of trucking that I do. And I'm fine with that. But I like the stuff that people think of as like, you know, the white van trailer going down the road and delivering your groceries and stuff that I'm terrible at. Mostly because I just don't do it. Yeah. So, Thor Labs is.
The Thor Labs is a great company. Okay. They're one of my favorites. Let me just.
There are. Andrew's question is a good one, and your answer is good because I've heard you say this. I think I've even looked them up before.
This is Thor Labs. I'm showing some stuff.
Oh, do I have to share it? Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah.
And so it's all the different things. And so I was talking about mirrors, like these are
using,
broadband dielectric mirrors, and you'll notice like this one. This EO3 mirror, you can see right through it. That label is on the other side of the glass.
Because that's the type that doesn't pass. It doesn't pass the one. It's meant to pass.
It's the green
type of light and reflect others only.
Yeah, it's the green. This is the reflectance. It starts at 92%, not at 0%.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the EO3 mirror in the green, you use that for. From the high 700s up to when another thing takes over. The blue one, and over that whole range, it has over 99% reflectivity.
Yeah, and there's a bit of an overlap, but like if you're right dead center of that green one, you want that green one.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the blue one, then the green one, you have some overlap. The red one, there's very little overlap on the right, but the left.
Yeah,
one,
but
it also has a very narrow band, right? Like
Yes, but also it's getting down to, because this line here is 300 nanometers. That's some pretty hard. That's some like pretty UV light. That's ultraviolet. That is not visible, and everything gets harder because once you get down to this level, air is opaque. Air is no longer transparent for that. So you have to do everything in vacuum, and you have to do everything with and also glass. Just glass is like also opaque a lot of the time. So you have to do everything with layered stuff that
yeah, because we wear glasses, like I do all the time, UV blocking glasses.
Yeah.
That I use for to keep away glare, and I wear sunglasses all the time, like even on an overcast day, just to cut glare. When you're out driving all day, like it helps your eyes get tired too, or mine do.
Yeah, but I mean, this 1-inch mirror costs $80.
But yeah, it costs how much?
$80. Well, that little 1-inch mirror cost $80.
But you go ahead and make one in your backyard.
But the ones that are even like more are like the wave plates.
Question. I understood you were saying on the left hand side of that graph was UV, and I would assume ultra or infrared would be to the right, but I don't know if that's how that
infrared was to the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Infrared mirroring is a big thing on like things like the James Webb Space Telescope, right? Like that's part of how it detects the photons coming from far in the past and far away.
They use gold mirrors.
Gold, okay.
Which they also sell here. Mirrors. See, these are big. Like a lot of these mirrors are.
This is like Amazon for scientists that do optics.
Yeah. I love this website.
This is fantastic.
And
you should see me at the Iowa 80 website for truck accessories. Although I wouldn't buy them there. There's places in Canada, but their websites aren't as good at finding product.
Yeah, but like these wave plates, they look just like pieces of clear glass. Mm-hmm. What they do is they rotate the polarization. So if you have vertically polarized light and then you have a wave plate, then depending on the angle that the wave plate's set, because they actually microscopically have an axis, it rotates the polarization. That's what they do. They rotate polarization. That's really important for a lot of stuff. It's really important for a lot of stuff. $500 a pop.
Yeah, well,
we actually buy ours in bulk from China for like $50 a pop or something.
You go to
right. If we need it tomorrow, then we would get it from here.
Of them, and you're like, you strap that to the back of your Honda.
Yeah. So yeah,
if I was in California, you could hire me to deliver the skid of polarizers, and you could also hire me to bring you cable tray.
Yeah, but then these are the more fun things. Like I don't even know what you need a 6-axis stage for, but all of these knobs, like this one is motorized. It translates this thing in a bunch of different ways. I don't even know. I've never even used that one. I have used their 3-axis stages though.
All right. I also want to say something. Speaking of knobs, you just reminded me of something you said earlier about like knurled knobs.
Oh yeah.
It reminded me that during my industrial arts education,
they have a whole page
in high school. I had to draw a knurled screw adjustment thing as part of my industrial blueprint drawing course. Yeah. I had to draw that with a pencil, and so we had like one in a textbook that we had to copy, and it was fucking wild. And I had so much trouble getting the knurling to come out with the right spacing.
Yeah,
I remember like struggling with that like industrial blueprint part. I was okay at drawing like floor plans and stuff, but I was terrible at like the industrial drawings. And you had to do like orthographic and like plan type view things. And I just, when you were talking about knurled knobs, I was like, oh, that was a fucking week from hell.
Yeah.
I was at the pencil sharpener more than I was at the drafting table. All right. So we've made it to past 3 hours. So
yeah.
Hey, PC is here. PC is here telling us to look and describe. well. Like, share, and
Nice.
subscribe. Yeah, absolutely. PC is the moddiest mod. And it's good to see a PC. And it's been great to have Vandy here for a chat. Sometimes Vandy and I have chats like this, and we don't televise them, so to speak. It's probably not nearly as coherent.
We do televise, like the ones that we plan. We have.
Yeah, we
at
like
least
we
one
think
or
it out a
two.
little bit. Yeah.
But yeah,
We've been planning this since yesterday at noon.
Yep.
And
Not
which
at
is
noon.
it was like at 7 p.m. or something. I
The
don't
video didn't exist yesterday at noon. I took that video at like 5.
Yeah, so
3
I
p.m.
think it started yesterday evening, and then we had, because I was up with my leg last night. I'm gonna be up with my leg again tonight. I'm gonna go eat supper soon.
Yeah, I also gotta.
Yeah, you gotta eat something. Yeah, it's only like it's almost 10 o'clock here on the East Coast. I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming. I want to thank everybody that's watching in the future. If you're watching far enough in the future, TAP may have already solved problems that you've developed in the next decade by doing this experimentation. We may be watching a video. You may be watching a video right now, far in the past, about how the experimentation was done, how they adjusted the knobs to replace your melted leg that was destroyed in a laser accident. And then TAP rebuilds it with a laser. Anyway, remember to oil your turbo encabulator.
Yep.
And TAP, do you want to say anything other than BSS tomorrow at
BSS tomorrow?
Tomorrow 9:30. Who's your guest?
9:30. Maya Atkinson's channel.
Yeah, Maya Atkinson. If you don't know where that is, I
can get the link. Don't worry, PC. I can get the link.
Yeah. You're a mod here, right? Yeah, oil up that encabulator.
I would.
Yeah, no, and we also have a lot of fun there. Sometimes I do bingos. I will be asleep when it's on. I don't even know what time I have to start tomorrow, but I have to go get the truck. It's not here, so and I have to travel 2 hours to be somewhere at 7 in the morning. I'll be waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Journey's here. You know what? I don't know if Stop's still here, but my unfinished journey is here, and when Journey's here, I like to say don't stop, but then Stop's here, so that. That's awkward.
All right. Well,
anyway, Journey, you've arrived just for the ending. So I would wave if I had video, but as usual, we don't have video. But
I'll wave for both of us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.